Wonderful. Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Multnomah County's Board of Commissioners 16th budget work session. We're back this afternoon. Just a reminder to silence your electronic devices and don't forget to state your name for the record before speaking or responding to questions, and just hit the button to turn the mic on and off as you need to. So welcome. Our first item this afternoon is from the county auditor. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will have you present your budget and a chance for this board to ask questions. So please take it away.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you, Chair and Commissioners. For the record, I'm Jennifer McWork. I'm the county auditor and I use she/her accounts. I'm pleased to be here to talk with you today about my office's FY 2026 budget. I want to thank Budget Director Christian Elkin and Senior Budget Analyst Aaron Russell for their support throughout this process. And I want to thank Anna Marie McNeil, my office's Operations and Audit Director, for her support. I just want to point out that in the top left of the slide is my office's logo. It has a bridge to communicate how my office can be a bridge between the county and their county government, between the public and their county government. And also it has sort of 4 prominent pillars which reflect performance audits, the Good Government Hotline, our county ombudsperson, and community engagement. Next slide, please. I'll go over my office's mission, our vision, and how we serve, some equity updates, talk about each function a bit and the impacts we've had, and then turn to the fiscal year 2026 budget, and we'll have time for questions. Next slide. So all of my office's responsibilities are mandated in the county charter or in county code. And just a reminder that the county auditor consents to duties that are in the county code. They can't just be assigned to the auditor. Next slide. Our mission is to promote accountable and equitable county government. Next slide. And we carry out this mission by conducting performance audits where we independently examine county programs, by operating the Good Government Hotline where we receive and investigate reports of suspected fraud, waste, inefficiency, and abusive position, by offering the county ombudsperson who serves as an impartial resource to help people resolve issues they're having with county programs. And not on here, but in addition, the county charter gives us the ability to conduct special studies to improve government. Next slide, please. And crowning all of these things is our commitment to community engagement. It's really vital to effectively doing our work and focusing our audit and investigative resources appropriately. We also share with community what we've learned from them and provide them with information they can use to help keep the government accountable. Next slide. In addition to the core work I just talked about, the charter and code have some additional assignments to the county auditor. I appoint a salary commission at the beginning of every even year. They set your salaries, the sheriff's salary, and a county supplement for the DA. My salary is set in the county charter, so I don't have a piece in that game. The charter also requires my office to prepare a commissioner district reapportionment plan every 10 years after the census, and then we present that plan to the board for approval. And per county code, we provide ongoing support for the board's audit committee. It's a liaison to you, to the external auditor, and to management for the financial audit that's required under Oregon law every year. Next slide. As we carry out our mission, we strive to do so in ways that reflect our values. We demonstrate our value of equity by centering and elevating the voices of those who are most impacted, identifying barriers and working to remove them, and dedicating ourselves to using a racial justice lens to guide all of our work. We show our value of accountability by holding ourselves accountable to our mission, each other, and our community, by promoting responsible government through truth-telling, and by sharing trustworthy information so people can understand and improve their government. And we demonstrate our value of inclusion by inclusively leading with race, by being responsive to our communities and actively supporting people to participate in our work. Next slide. Our approach is really rooted in serving the public interest, acting in integrity, adhering to high ethical standards, and using a trauma-informed approach and an equity lens in all of our work. Next slide. We serve everyone in Multnomah County. As county auditor, I was elected on a countywide basis, and I'm directly accountable to the public. I issue an annual report every year to support this accountability, and the image on the bottom of this slide is from the most recent report, which was from 2024. Next slide. We also participate in multiple community events to table or otherwise share information to ensure people know about the services the office provides. The picture on the left is from the Philippine American Chamber of Commerce's annual networking event. One of our salary commissioners, Karen N., is in the middle of the photo, and my constituent relations and DEI engagement specialist, Raymond De Silva, is second from the right. The other photo is from an in-person open house that my office held in September of 2024. About 50 people attended that event, and we also had a virtual open house that same month and had around 20 people at that event. Next slide, please. I wanted to share some equity updates with you as well. My office continues to have an internal DEI committee that helps ensure all of our efforts within the office are aligned in terms of how we're approaching DEI. And I continue to work with a community advisory committee that includes people who identify as LGBTQ+ and BIPOC and who have many very lived experiences. And we've now issued 2 issues of a resource guide that provides information about what the office does and includes resources in Multnomah County. The information in the guide is for everyone, but it emphasizes resources for BIPOC and LGBTQ+ communities to support self-care, resiliency, and improved wellness as an act against racism. Next slide, please. We also continue to educate other auditors and investigators about how to embed diversity, equity, and inclusion into their work. Last fiscal year and ongoing, Audit Director Caroline Zavitkovsky and Senior Auditor Mandy Hood have been working with a colleague at the State Audits Division to provide training on how to use trauma-informed practices in our work. Earlier this month, they provided a 4-hour workshop at our annual Association of Local Government Auditors Conference to investigators and auditors from around the nation. And also at that national conference, Senior Auditor Shira Sumare led a session on how cultural awareness and recognizing personal biases can improve audits and investigations. Next slide. We also continue to introduce students from historically under-resourced communities to government careers. We'll have a hotline community engagement intern this summer through the College to County program. We've now had 3 College to County interns. 2 of them now work in my office, Shira Sumare, who I just spoke about, and Kate Milne, who is our ombudsperson intake specialist. Chelsea Tuz Uksol, a prior intern we had for 2 years, now works at the health department. So I've really appreciated the central funding support that we've been able to use to participate in the C2C program. Next slide. I'll talk a bit now about the county ombudsperson work, with a reminder that each function, as I talk about it, includes a way to engage with community and support equity. This photo is of me with County Ombudsperson Cheryl Taylor and Ombudsperson Intake Specialist Kate Milne. They were tabling at the 39th Annual Martin Luther King Jr. Tribute put on by the World Arts Foundation. Next slide. Any resident in Multnomah County can contact the ombudsperson for help. We are responsive to those contacts and do our best to provide assistance. The county ombudsperson prioritizes serving people who are experiencing barriers to accessing county programs. Often the people experiencing barriers are from historically under-resourced communities, and so helping people remove these barriers really helps everyone. Next slide, please. The intake and ombudsperson intake specialist and ombudsperson listen carefully to people's complaints and concerns and really strive to help the person and the county program find a path to resolution. Often this resolution can happen through phone calls or other informal means, but if necessary, the ombudsperson can conduct independent, impartial investigations into county administrative actions and recommend changes. Next slide. I wanted to just explain briefly what casework can include. There's a detailed intake session. The ombudsperson may do interviews, other research, and fact-finding. On occasion, it can include arranging or attending public meetings to hear community member testimony and or facilitate meetings. Next slide. It can also include mediation and conflict resolution. And then the ombudsperson makes recommendations that try to support resolution between the complainant and the county program, and really try to prioritize an equitable outcome. The ombudsperson's not an advocate for the person who calls them, and they're not an advocate for the county program. They're really trying to look at what they can do to support better process. We might reach conclusions that really support the government's actions, or we may recommend changes, or we might do both. So it's really a focus on improvement for the government. Next slide. 2024 was the first full calendar year that we had a county ombudsperson. In 2023, we had the ombudsperson here for about 7 months. And when we compared that 7-month period to a 7-month period from 2024, we had a 31% increase in county-related reports. In 2024, we received 203 reports, 106 were county-related, and we had 65 county-related cases out of that. So if that rate of contacts we're seeing continues, we'll probably have around 120 cases by the end of the year. Next slide. And then just a snapshot in where the cases were focused. Most of the cases in 2024 were about the Department of Community Services, and then next up was the Department of County Human Services. Next slide. And we do issue an annual report on the ombudsperson's work. That's just an image of the cover, and everything I just described is in that report. Next slide. So on to the Good Government Hotline. This picture is of Chelsea Zuxel, the C2C intern I mentioned earlier, and our hotline director, Mark Rose. I believe this is from a Montevilla Street Fair. Next slide. The hotline director provides one-on-one service to each person who connects with us, but sometimes people report to the hotline anonymously, and the kind of one-on-one engagement we'd like to do isn't possible in those cases. While people can report anonymously, even if they don't, we protect their identities. Oregon law requires us to do so. It says that you can't disclose somebody's identity without their express permission. We take all reports that come in seriously, and know it takes bravery to make a report to the hotline or to reach out to the ombudsperson. So all of the reports you see coming from the hotline are the results of people feeling like they could speak up, and we are grateful for that. Next slide. In 2024, we had 103 reports to the hotline. 86 were county related. Of these, 32 were about suspected fraud, waste, inefficiency, or abusive position. That was an 88% increase in those types of reports over the prior year. Next slide. And then the majority of reports we received were about the health department and then the Department of County Human Services. Next slide. And then similarly to the ombudsperson, we do an annual report every year on the hotline, and the information I just shared is in that report. Next slide. We issued several communications arising from tips to the hotline. One was a follow-up on a report about animal services, a memo to all of you, actually I can't remember when it came out, a memo to the board, not sure who was on the board at the time, about the need to comply with state contract financial terms, and a report we recently issued about waste that we identified related to executive recruitments. Next slide. And now on to performance audits. This picture is from the open house that I talked about earlier. It shows senior auditors Mandy Hood and Shura Sumare talking with a community member. Next slide. Each audit report that my office issues is a tool that anyone in the county can use to support government improvement. More specifically, we strive to center the experiences of those who are most impacted in our performance audit reports. We think this is really critical to examining government effectiveness. Next slide. While our ombudsperson and hotline functions are responsive, we plan our performance audits in advance on an annual basis. Each year, we conduct a risk assessment at the county division level. It currently has around 14 measures, including the ones on this slide. We look at the life and safety impact if a division doesn't adequately perform its core functions. We consider its annual budget and FTE, how the department scored on our ethics survey, how many complaints we've received, and then how recently we've audited the division. Anybody who lives or works in the county can recommend an audit to us. And based on the risk assessment and the audit ideas we've received, staff in my office pitch audits, and I share a proposed schedule with my community advisory committee for their input, and then finalize it and publish it. Next slide. This slide shows basically the components of audit findings. A finding comprises criteria, condition, cause, effect, and recommendation. We evaluate actual conditions against criteria, which could be a legal framework, best practices, or county policies. We really strive to determine the root causes for the conditions we find, as well as the effect that conditions are having on the program's ability to meet its goals. We aim to create recommendations that will address the root causes we find and pay particular attention to where we can support accountability, effectiveness, and racial equity. Next slide. Audit work includes quantitative and qualitative components. For example, we connect with county staff at every level of the organization in the area we're auditing. And we also work to build trust and relationships with impacted communities. Engagement with these communities can be one-on-one, through interviews, it can be through focus groups, we could be attending meetings, we could be sending and receiving surveys. So we're continually looking for ways to engage with impacted communities that work well for those communities. Next slide. This fiscal year, we published an informational report on the county's Future of Work initiative, a special report on the county's ethical culture, and audit reports on the county's financial condition and preschool for all. We have another 2 reports that I expect to be published next month, and 4 other audits are in progress. Next slide. We've also issued 4 reports looking at the status of recommendations. One was on recommendations to the joint office. One was about the county's budget process, about animal services, and then related to funds management, a final assessment related to the county's efforts during the pandemic. Next slide. So a little bit of background heading into the budget discussion. In September 2024, I alerted Chair Vega-Peterson that my office was in immediate need of staffing for the ombudsperson and for the hotline. There weren't funds available to meet those needs, but my office worked with budget office staff and HR. We were able to establish the ombudsperson intake specialist as a limited duration position at that time. We were able to do so due to some savings from the retirement of a principal auditor, and we'd also had an unsuccessful effort to obtain an audit management system. When I received my draft budget, it included the ombudsperson intake specialist. I was also directed to cut my budget by 3%, and so I wanted to share what those reductions would have been. I proposed not awarding merit raises to all staff, particularly those who are higher earners, and then reducing the budget for training, which could have put us potentially in conflict with the charter, which says we have to abide by generally accepted government auditing standards, and those include requirements for ongoing education. And then I also proposed reducing the community engagement budget, which would have impacted our ability to do translation or provide incentives that make it possible for impacted communities to participate in our work. So Chair Vega-Peterson opted not to accept these cuts, and I'm very appreciative of that. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed budget for my office. The majority of it is personnel, and that makes sense. Without my staff, this work wouldn't happen. We also have internal services assigned to us. Contractual services primarily is related to that external financial audit that's required every year. We hold that contract for the county. And then materials and supplies is really what we use to provide that required training, pay for translation and incentives. So we have some dues for professional associations, that sort of thing. Next slide. So this is the FTE trend for my office. I want to be really clear about a couple of things. One is that if you looked at the years going back to the 90s, you'd see that there was consistently between 8 and 9 FTE. For fiscal year 2023, the county did not have a constraint. I think that's the only time it hasn't had a constraint since I've been here. And I also was advocating for funding my office in a way that would better support its independence. So that led to the first time in about 30 years that we were able to increase the size of the staff. My office is still understaffed. Similar jurisdictions with budgets between $2 and $4 billion have auditors' offices with 15 staff, but those offices don't have hotlines, they don't have ombudspersons. All of their staff are dedicated to conducting audits. So truly, if you wanted to have a fully staffed auditor's office, we'd have about 25 people. I'm not asking for that, I'm just providing this as information. Next slide. And then I just wanted to close with some context about my office. I think having an auditor's office isn't just a good thing to do, it's really absolutely essential to safeguarding our local democracy. A hallmark of democracy is the ability to be able to criticize government without fear of retribution. And that's not something that we're seeing with certainty at the federal level, where we've seen a quick rise in actions, such as the firing of inspectors general without cause. And those sorts of things support a culture of fear of retribution. That's not, unfortunately, new for auditors, really, at any level. That's one reason why the Association of Local Government Auditors has a committee dedicated to supporting audit functions that are under attack. But this fear of retribution can really only be mitigated by ensuring auditors are truly independent from the entity they audit, and we don't have that level of independence here at Multnomah County. This is a structural issue because the county auditor's budget is proposed by the chair. Generally accepted government auditing standards, the World Bank's Index of Independence of Audit Institutions, and the Association of Local Government Auditors all make it clear that decisions about funding for the audit organization should not be controlled by managers or officials subject to audit. But that's the situation we have here, and it's something I think we could all fix together. So I'm hoping this summer to start talking with all of you about a potential pilot to budget for the auditor's office in a way that's in alignment with our local democracy's values and best practices for auditors' offices. So I'm just a preview of what you will be hearing from me after we're done with this budget season. And with that, next slide, please. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Auditor. We really appreciate you being here and going through all of this. Any questions for the Auditor? Yeah, please, Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Auditor McGurk, for just the work. Just had a question around the mediation. Is that something that you manage through your office, or do we have an outside entity do the mediation?
We're really fortunate that our county ombudsperson, Cheryl Taylor, has a JD, but also certification in conflict resolution, including mediation. So that's something she's able to do when the need arises.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Singleton?
Sorry, no questions. Just want to appreciate, we don't get a lot of time with you, so I want to appreciate publicly. I just think that there's been so much good work, and I got to run into your staff yesterday, and really glad that you have the ombudsperson position as well, and look forward to supporting this budget. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have just a question understanding the difference between a performance audit and a financial audit. Eric has come and presented to us, which is very much the mechanics and best practices of accounting and fiscal policy. And I'm wondering where if it falls under performance audit or where we look at the cost effectiveness of various ways of delivering the services the county does. So it kind of seems to be neither exactly, but I'm trying to understand if that type of thing falls under a potential audit you guys do, or if that is separate and apart from what you do.
That is definitely something that can take place during a performance audit. So for example, the SHS audit that we have underway, one of the things we talk about as a potential area of focus is really looking at the effectiveness of how the dollars have been spent and how that aligns with the stated goals the county has. Performance audits, I think, are broader than financial audits in terms of what we might look at, kind of the very wide range of objectives. and then also some of the techniques we use and requirements we follow. So they're different. Performance audit is going to have some similar things. We're going to look at budget. We're going to look at trends. We're probably going to look at FTE type things. We're going to look at how effective is this program. We're going to be looking at laws, policies. There are certain things we have to look at in terms of potential for fraud. We look at the control environment, which involves things like segregation of duties. But we also spend a lot of time just learning from people and finding out, what have been issues that people have seen for years that we could probably help elevate. And you're not going to really do that in a financial audit.
Thank you. Any other questions for the auditor? Commissioner from Edwards?
Start with a comment. As a non-auditor, I think I still love auditing because as a tool for systems improvements, I really appreciate the work that you and your team do on multiple fronts. Because again, I think it makes the county better, and if you take it in the spirit of it's a systems improvement tool, then it becomes less threatening in some cases. On slide 21 and 26, which is both the ombudsman and also the hotline reports sort of by department. And I'm curious, I know, for example, you have a report you do on the hotline, and I'm wondering, do the specific departments get the direct feedback? Sometimes I'm curious because, again, as a way of systemic improvement, or do they get the sort of generic, like, here's everything that came in?
So for every case that the ombudsperson has, they're working with the program. So the department's going to have some insight into what issue we're trying to get a resolution on. For the hotline, we get a lot of complaints to the hotline that aren't related to fraud, waste, or abuse. And so those we either they're often personnel matters. So we'll tell the person who's reported, you should be taking this to your manager or HR. Sometimes they say we've already done that, and that's why we're coming to you. We still try to encourage that. If it's a health or safety issue, we're going to take that directly to the department director or the HR manager, depending on what the issue is, so it can be addressed. So for example, during the pandemic, we'd like a shared spreadsheet or Google Sheet so that when we were getting complaints related to the virus, we could share that, with health or whoever else, so it could get reacted to quickly. The last year, for the departments that had the highest number of complaints, we did kind of a memo to them about the categories of complaints, just to make sure they had some line of sight to that. But again, if we're doing an investigation, if it ends up being something where we need to obtain information from a department, they will hear from us and be involved.
Okay. For the budget discussion that you teed up on the auditor's independence, and it sounds like that's a post-budget conversation, but one of the things I'd be interested in, is there a model metro or the city or even at the state of what that looks like?
No. It's something that I think traditionally auditors have shied away from, really out of fear, because they're worried that if they try to move to that, something might get cut. The prior city auditor did try to move something forward and wasn't successful. However, there are other models, like Canada has a Cities and Towns Act that has a formula for what local government auditors are going to get. The City and County of San Francisco has a formula. So there are things I can provide that other jurisdictions do as we're considering whether we might do that.
Pardon? My question, was on the discussion about the auditor having to ask another elected official that is actually an entity in which that they're auditing for their budget. Sort of the chilling effect of
I got it.
the way we get rid of bad audits or audits we don't like is we just underfund them.
I just want to be clear, I'm not talking about any specific person here, it's really structural.
The concept.
Yes.
Yeah, and then my last point is, I appreciate in the program offer your performance measures. I think they're very tangible. One question I had about the performance measures is, one of them is recommendations in progress or implemented at the time of evaluation in the FY or the fiscal year. And they run from 80 to 90% of the estimates and the actuals. Do you go back, since this is in progress, it also means maybe at some point it gets completed, do you go back and look at like, and then provide additional guidance or prodding if something hasn't been implemented that that a entity said they were going to implement?
I haven't had the resources to be able to go back multiple times, but what it says in every recommendation report, that the department can let us know if they want to change or update the status of a recommendation, and then we would look at documentation or whatever we needed to do to make sure that we agreed that, yes, it's now implemented.
Thank you. That's my only questions I had.
Any other questions for Auditor? All right, thank you so much, Auditor McGurk. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our second of three, four things today. Sorry, just realized we had preschool for all coming back. So we'll have the Office of Emergency Management present. Welcome, Chris Voss. Thank you so much for being here today.
Great. Well, first, my name is Chris Voss, him, Director of Emergency Management from Multnomah County. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me to be here today. I also want to thank Christian and Aaron Russell very much for helping me with our preparation this year. I also, for the first time in 10 years, I want to thank someone else from my office, Gail, who was very much instrumental in sort of helping to put together this year's budget submission. So thank you, Gail. Why don't we go to the next slide? So I'm going to move kind of fast through some slides, and there's 1 or 2 slides I'm going to spend a little bit more time on as we go sort of, I may not address every bullet and every slide, as some of these are kind of busy. But our office actually just finished putting together our 5-year strategic plan. It was a culmination of not just years of work, but if you think about all the emergencies we've had from the heat dome to COVID, where we've collected all the actions and the improvements we're trying to implement over the course of the next few years, a pretty big operation, and we're looking forward to sort of the next steps as we very much focus on, I think, the people in Multnomah County that have been unfortunately mostly impacted by our disasters in the last few years. Next slide. So, I think probably most notable here that I want to sort of highlight is the people that my office supports are the underserved communities in Multnomah County. Yes, our largest program very much supports the houseless community, the unsheltered houseless community. But in reality, every emergency that we deal with, maybe it's a public safety power shutoff in Corbett, and we've got to stand up and open up a location so that people can sort of just charge their oxygen. These are people that don't often have a lot of our options. In our winter shelters, you see, it's not the people that can afford to go to a hotel room when they lose power, as in this last emergency where there were a lot of power outages. It's the people with no other options. So we often are that safety net for the people that are in need and don't have another option. Next slide. I'm going to focus a little bit on this one because this is my big slide and the things that I want to sort of leave this group with. So a lot of big changes. The first is that the county has 2 warehouses, and we're merging those 2 into one. The joint office has one. We have one. We're merging those into 2 next year. You won't see all of the savings reflected in this next year, as we're getting out of one of those leases about halfway through I think January 31st. So not only will you see some savings this year, but you'll actually see an additional savings from that merger next year. I'm also very high on this, this merger because I think it actually allows us to sort of share staff in a way that I think will be more efficient for the county. So I want to highlight this next bullet. If you look at all of the program measures that we're supporting, and it's note when you kind of do this year-over-year budget analysis, it doesn't show the program that we're bringing over from the joint office, which is the supply center, but collectively our budget's going from 9.7 million down to 7.4 million, $2.2 million in total. And I want to say that's not all real savings, and I want to sort of address that because I think that that's a really important piece, because that's a big number, 23.4%. Also within that change, you're seeing a reduction of 5 FTE, which is notable as well. And while some of those really have a direct impact, is we also sort of have plans, things that we're going to sort of space out a little more. Some of those are also sort of efficiencies with sort of the merger and just things that we've been able to do over the course of years, which I think is important. We are maintaining our 1,300 person ability to shelter 1,300 people during a severe weather event. I can't tell you how big of a lift that is. I think at one point I told the chair it kind of keeps me awake a lot in the winter when we have one of those events. But really proud of the people that I work with that we've been able to sort of accomplish that mission. The federal government, I'll talk a little more about this later, but it's a big question mark. If you watch the newspaper every day, we're really not sure exactly how they're going to support us. But for right now, we're assuming that they're going to honor the grants they've given us, they've already awarded. I'm not sure that that will come to pass, but that's what we're assuming right now. I think there's a much bigger question mark is if we'll see dollars past the ones we've already been awarded. And now this last bullet, because this is something notable. Every year, it's kind of hard to sort of guess exactly how many emergencies you're going to have every year. And last year, you probably heard, maybe you didn't hear, Christian told me that she was going to put me in budget jail if I went over budget again. And the reality is I don't have control over how many severe, COVID, I mean, that was an event where obviously our budget, heat dome, we had all these events. Well, this year is probably the first year we're going to be giving dollars back. So then the question is, because this year we didn't have as many emergencies for the first time in 5 years, and be like, hey, we didn't spend all our money, so hundreds of thousands of dollars that were allocated to me are probably coming back. So now here's the oddity here in my budget. What do you ultimately budget for? Within this budget and within this $2.2 million in savings, one of the things that we've said is we're pretty well stocked if there's an emergency tomorrow. But if I have 2 or 3 events, I'm going to have to come back for more money to replace the supplies that I've utilized during those events. So there is not as much money in this budget to replace the supplies that we're going to utilize. And this is where I said, is it real and what do you budget for? Do you budget for an average year? Do you budget for the previous year, where maybe like this last year was light? Or do you budget for a bigger year? I don't have the answer to that, but I just wanted to let you know that is an inexact science, and it's hard year over year to do what I do. If I could extrapolate over the course of 25 years, I can come up with probably a better number, but with 1 year, it's really hard to sort of know what's next. Next slide. So a little bit about my office. A lot of the things that we do from a plan standpoint, from exercise training, a lot of these things are required or they come directly out of our after actions. So there's very little that we do. It's just like, okay, we're going to just do this because we think we need it. It is a direct result of part of our improvement process, and we produce, several after actions a year. Or it's something that the state or the federal government says, hey, if you want to be able to access this grant, or you want to be able to do this, or sometimes it's not even us. Sometimes if the school wants to access a grant, or Corbett Water wants to access a grant, we have to have certain plans approved by the federal government, and the federal government asks that they attach those plans. So a lot of these things are required, very, very important for us. Next slide. Our biggest program is our logistics side. We've got millions of dollars in supplies. You can see just how much of stuff we're providing. And I'll highlight this a little bit more, but probably the biggest nuance here is that from the supply center side, we're not changing the budget for supplies dramatically, but I could tell you every day things are getting more expensive. I feel like every week Gail tells me that a case of water went up another $1. I mean, we're reaching a point where even with the same dollars, we're potentially not doing the same amount of work, and we're going to feel that a little bit next year. Next slide. Also, just to highlight, obviously people don't, I think, understand how often we open shelters. It's quite a bit. This wasn't something we did years ago, but obviously the population of unsheltered houses has reached a point where we're doing it more and more. And climate change is not helping. And I did not organize the protesters outside for some sort of climate event, climate action event either. So if you see them go by with signs, not me, but I am living the climate scenario. And then also, we also help out a lot of departments. There's not much capability in the world of warehousing in the county. So this Friday, we've got Department of County Human Services coming in to the warehouse. We took some of their supplies and they're going to sort of organize. So this is a capability where we did have 2 and now we're going to whittle down to 1, and we're really happy to support those other departments when we can. Next slide. So I'm going to highlight this. You see my next year, we're asking for this budget of $7.4 million. On the far right, you could see I kind of modified this slide. I said, okay, 1.38 million supply center. Why that's notable is, remember, this year, the supply center is not in my budget. Otherwise, my 2025 supportive housing services budget would be $1.7 million higher. And it would look like you're taking $5.6 million and you're doing for $3.3 million. That is ultimately what we're hoping to accomplish, and still meeting the metrics and performance measures that we had in place this year. So big lift. Next slide. This is a standard slide you guys sort of see. I don't like it only because in my office, when there are disasters, there's a lot of there's LDAs, there's on-call folks, there's addendum L folks. In fact, at one point in 2021, I had 98 direct reports during COVID, so it doesn't capture all of those people. But you can see, like I said, the year-over-year change where we are reducing several folks from last year to this year, and I think that that's a little more comparable than where we were in probably 2021 and 2022. Next slide. Contractual services are part of this. I want to make note, this does include funding for RDPO, which I know Commissioner Berm-Edwards is sort of a part of as well. Big questions on, what's going to happen with the federal government there, but our local cost share, that is part of our budget. And you can see, obviously, like many offices, personnel is sort of our biggest component. Next slide. So the future challenges. Let's talk about federal government. Every day we hear that they're trying to get out of this business. I don't know what that means for us, but it puts me in a cautious position. We continue to work with the city, all our cities, on a regular basis, and just had meetings in the last few weeks with the city of Portland over their programs and shelters. Is, like, hey, when they open locations, Moore Street is a great example. The Salvation Army is running that. That location doesn't have an air conditioner. So what are we doing in severe weather in the summer? As you imagine, there's a lot of buildup and communication between us that we're sort of regularly doing. But I don't see my job as sort of just Multnomah County. My job is to also sort of bring together everybody that can contribute, whether that's TriMet that's providing buses to sort of help move people, or it's whether our cities, I could tell you that we're a lot better when we're all working together, and that's one of my primary missions. I talked about sort of the merging, increased supply costs, and then ultimately, the community that we're serving, it doesn't seem to be shrinking just yet. I'm hoping that collectively over the next couple of years, you can put me in a position where my office can be a lot smaller through other actions. Hopefully you guys will work me out of a job. Next slide. One more slide. Yeah. We're trying. I know everybody's trying. Within that homeless response action plan, 2 things I want to highlight, and they're not directly, I think they're indirectly within the plan. My program is not to turn anybody away. Like I said, we don't want my programs. At the end of the day, there are solutions out there that are better. So if you don't have my solution, that's great. But right now, my plan is to, and our goal is to not turn anybody away. And we work really kind of hard to do that. As well as to sort of maintain the enhanced supply program. Next slide. You could see several of our performance measures, our program offers, and sort of how they're broken down. You could see there's sometimes a balance between general fund as well as SHS funds as well to support the ultimate goal. And it's because sometimes it's not as clear for us, and so there is sometimes a balance within some of my program offers. Next slide. I did want to sort of just highlight sort of our staffing. You could see sort of the positions we are eliminating. Unfortunately, 2 of them are filled. One of those is filled coming from the joint office warehouse, and one of them is filled on sort of our logistics side. But as I sort of highlight this, I think it's really, for me, it's the unknowns. We have the federal government unknown. We have everything is becoming more expensive. We've got the cuts to sort of our office, both sort of staff and numbers, but we're hoping through a lot of efficiencies we can sort of manage that. There will be some other operational changes, but a lot of them will be done through efficiencies. Disasters are becoming more frequent, and so I've got that one, and the people we're serving continue to grow. So, you know, collectively, all of those things don't make it, I love my job, but it seems to be more and more work every year. And I really wanted to sort of thank all of the people that I work with to sort of make that possible, because like I said, it does feel like it's getting harder some years. So I think that's it. Next slide. Now I'm here for questions for you.
Thank you. With the Cascadia event out there, you will never be worked out of a job. I will just have to say that we are always going to need to be planning. Okay, so opening up to the board for questions. Commissioner Moyer?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, to the extent that it's possible to look into what happened in states like Kentucky related to the inability to declare a disaster and get federal help, what increased liability risk do we have related to the likelihood of federal assistance, the resources that we might need to have access to if we cannot count on that kind of response, and, you know, in relationship to our public health authority or anything else? I mean, I understand that this is a dynamic situation, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around what a new reality would look like and how we would need to think differently about your office's role without the assistance of federal partners.
I want to give you the really short answer, because the long answer is days to that question. But there's 2 components to a lot of the changes that we're seeing. And the ultimate liability, it's potentially, for the Cascadia, it's potentially billions of dollars. I mean, ultimately, that the federal government would come in with public assistance and support. So if they're not doing that, you're talking a whole lot of dollars. I think one of the bigger things that we've often, from a planning standpoint, with a catastrophic event that you've seen sometimes from the federal government, is the cost share, which typically is a 75-25. You've typically seen the president go up and say, you know what, this was a really, really big event. We're going to give you 100% cost share or 90% cost share. Within a lot of the bills and a lot of things we're seeing is they're trying to push back a lot harder and saying, no, it's only going to be 75% regardless of the emergency. We don't know. I mean, if that lands, now you're talking that delta becomes costs that are borne on the county folks. And the last thing I'll say, because like I said, I spent hours talking about this one issue, the federal government is desperately trying to get out of the snow and ice business. They don't want to support for those types of disasters, and they're trying to raise the threshold under which jurisdictions could even ask for dollars. So you might see greater liability with the small emergencies and specific type of emergencies, specifically severe winter weather. So the big snowstorm that could hit us, those are the ones that we might bear a few $1 million, and hopefully there's not a lot of, you know, infrastructure damage to us that we might not be reimbursed if some of those things that you're hearing actually come to pass, and we don't know that they will. Like I said, but you and I could sit down, and I'm happy to give you a whole lot more, because but right now everything is sort of tentative. We haven't seen sort of finalized, you know, plans from the feds.
Hi, good to see you outside of a severe weather event. Chris and I spent a lot of time together when I was here. I've got a couple of questions, which I don't think will be surprising to you. One, I want to appreciate that your office is involved and that this is a countywide response. I think when I was here, we were having really good conversations about how it wasn't just an HSD responsibility. And I really appreciate that everybody stepped into this space and made sure that we're thinking about it as a whole county and not just one department's responsibility. So thank you. I would love, and this can all be in follow-up, I would love to know how many people did we hit max capacity last year? And if we did, how many times that might be? I'm starting to get curious as we have more shelter and how we can scale up or down, acknowledging that some of the shelters aren't equipped to deal with severe heat in particular. And I know we had some shelters that were ongoing shelters a couple of years that sometimes the HVAC would just go out. It wasn't an expected issue that can happen as well. So just trying to get a sense for when or if we hit max capacity in the winter or summer.
So I can answer that really quick. Last year, we did not hit 1,300. Our max was about 850. Like I said, it was sort of the year before, we were at 1,356, so actually went over. And the year before that, we were at, I think it was 1,250. So really close to sort of that max. So two of the last 3 years, we're basically at max. And yeah, so just to give you some basic numbers.
Yeah, thank you.
Summer's always lighter for us than winter.
Yeah, and we have more ability to do day centers during the height of the heat. I'd love a cost breakdown of the severe weather supplies in particular, between water, blankets, clothing, hygiene kits, and what types of clothing are being provided. And on the piece around coordination, has the state stepped up to support again in any way? I know at one point had an HVAC unit that they actually brought down for us to use. Have they been partnering? You mentioned feds, cities, wondering how the state's showing up.
So the state in 2024 actually opened a shelter for us in winter. And then since then, they've been on down in Salem saying the primary department that did it at the state's just like, we can't do that anymore. So you're seeing a diminished capacity at the state level. They can support us. They can't quite open up their own. And that support does include things like equipment like air conditioners. We have several now in our warehouse that the state sort of loaned us so we could sort of quickly deploy. But I think they've moved from operational to support us. And so I think their program was born under a lot of, I think it was mostly COVID dollars. Those are sort of ended, and now that program has sort of shrunk a little bit. But their director that runs their shelter program is talked down in Salem quite a bit about, hey, we've lost this capability, which I think for the state is a concern because they're not us. We're a jurisdiction somehow to do this. But there's a lot of other jurisdictions that are really concerned out there about wildfire and really kind of need that resource and need maybe the state to sort of have some capacity there.
Yeah, absolutely. During the 2020 wildfires, the state needed to step up a lot to help there. What is the long-term funding plan here with knowing that there's such a large amount of SHS and that is not a forever funding source in its current state? What's the long-term funding plan, or is the expectation that we will just have to scale way down?
I do think that, and this question is probably even bigger than just me, but I can give you some of the Chris Voss perspective. You know, the other options within the plans that we have to sort of stand up better options for the people that are out there that are houseless, collectively that should be diminishing the need on my emergency safety net. And as that happens, the thought is you'd hopefully see even more of a shifting of smaller me, smaller logistics, smaller severe weather, because there are options out there that whether the county, the city, it's the home, it's their entire larger plan. Apartments make sure people are not, sort of houseless. I'm sort of the last resort. And like I said, I say work me out of a job, but collectively, I think that we'll have to see how some of those programs continue to sort of expand to take on. And if I really start to see fewer people coming to shelters or less of a need out there from a supply standpoint because there's not as many people that are sort of unsheltered houseless. but that has to happen. We need less unsheltered houseless folks for fewer people to show up at emergency shelters and fewer people actually getting supplies out on the street. You did see a little bit of a shift here from, there was a slight increase in general fund dollars from SHS dollars. But I think each year we kind of ask the question, where do we need to be based on what we saw last year? Are we seeing significant improvements, or do we need to sort of hold line? This performance measure that we have this year is the same performance measure we had last year.
I'll definitely be interested to keep tracking those over time. And one more question on supplies, and I just apologize, I don't remember this from when I was here. Do we have more in East County than anywhere else, oftentimes smoke and folks sleeping outside where we may not actually open a shelter, but we ask outreach workers to go and try and help people get more to safe locations. Do we provide any safety equipment or masks to those contractors who are out there in smoke? Is that something we have?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have provided masks, so we actually work really close with the health department. And so when we start to see air quality, and they often give us like, hey, listen, let's start pushing N95 masks. We've done that, which are higher level protection, even though they're not quite N95. You haven't been fit tested. I think you know that. So we have worked that. We also, for the one thing we've very much expanded in just the last 2 or 3 years are air scrubbers. So now we have a lot of air scrubbers where we can sort of put in buildings to sort of clean air, where that was a bigger issue back in 2020, 2021 for us. So happy we have that capability. Unfortunately, some of them are really loud, so we debate whether they'd be really good library options.
Yeah.
But we're happy that we have sort of both those kinds of, and we've done both of those over the course of the last few years.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I just, again, can't emphasize enough how great it is that this is a really wide approach. As the person who used to be solely responsible for deciding, when I was at the city of Portland, for deciding if severe weather thresholds were met, this is a much better approach to it. And the programming has come a really long way. So thank you.
Thank you.
I
Commissioner Moore.
do have a question about our temperature thresholds versus surrounding counties, which just curiosity about, I know that at the time this winter when we were looking at it, there was some conversation related to, you know, when we were concerned fatalities would be related. And, you know, luckily there were not mass fatalities related to weather during our severe weather. We did unfortunately have a fatality in my district. But I'm just kind of curious about why we don't align with our neighboring counties. And, you know, I know cost has a factor, but, you know, what are the give and take?
So we actually, us in Washington County, I'm very close to sort of the Washington County person, so we're very close there, and we share information. So a lot of times we're like, hey, you know, are you there? So Clackamas County is a little bit different, and their numbers are a little bit lighter. I think one of the most unique things about where we sometimes are a little bit different from sometimes where they are different, we take into a lot of other factors into account when we're trying to. So if you were to look this last winter, you know, I believe the first day the driving factor was not, okay, we didn't reach the cold, but it was specifically the health department came back and said, you know, we saw just a big uptick in ED visits, and so we're concerned. Okay, that became a driving factor for us, and so we're looking at 911 calls, we're looking at ED visits, we're looking at 311 calls. It's not just a temperature for us, and I think that that's really, really important. But we do coordinate, we do collaborate. But you're right. The other jurisdictions don't also have sort of what we have is sort of from a supply center, so they don't have this sort of stepping tier of response, whereas some of those programs for us activate before they ever open. But trust me, we actually have a winter weather program kickoff sort of next week as we sort of go through this. We invite them They invite us to theirs. We do know what they're doing. I think they have a pretty good idea of how we're doing, and we communicate during events.
Thank you. Commissioner Brand Medford?
Yes. Thanks for the presentation and what you do all year round. Really appreciate it. Just this is two just small questions. When you talk about the federal government honoring the grants that have already been awarded, do you actually have the money in hand, or is it just been?
No, they're reimbursable grants. So we basically submit the bills, and then often to either the state or the city of Portland through UASC or SHCAP, and then they submit the bills to the federal government, and then basically we all just cross our fingers and hopefully that the federal government actually sends us a check. It's all after the fact. It's reimbursable.
Okay. I'm assuming you'll keep us posted about what's happening on that front. And then the other question is just on the very last page about the reductions in backfill. So having gone through two cycles now, I am curious of one cycle, it was county only, the city didn't participate 2 years ago, is that right?
So, you know.
Or participate fully, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, and so I will say every emergency is a little bit different. We do work closely with our cities, and especially the city of Portland. And when I say every event's a little bit different, sometimes our asks are a little bit different. Sometimes I could tell you this last winter, we made a request for Charles Jordan, one of their rec centers, a little quicker. In the summer, sometimes we've got to make other requests because the city rec centers have better filtration systems than some of the nonprofits that we utilize. From a staffing standpoint, we kind of see things ebb and flow. And if you look at the reports, you could see the city and us were close, and then the city kind of diminished and kind of went pretty far down. This last winter, I was very happy to see an increase, not necessarily to where we were a few years ago, but it doubled from this last February event from the previous January event. So I want to say we work with them. We work with them closely. We're really glad to have them as partners. I think that they're making, the best decisions for themselves. We're trying to make decisions knowing that collectively, I'll go back and saying, I need everybody to sort of step up, and that's not just the city of Portland. That's TriMet, like I said, providing buses. Let's go around to help move people. It's everybody for us to get there.
So one of my concerns is because the year before last, when there was less city engagement, I don't know how to quite phrase it, but less city engagement. One of the things is on the last days of the emergency, people were doing double shifts, and I mean, there was a lot of stress on the staff and being able to staff it. And then last year, less so. And when I see the reduction for the shift from the county paying centrally for county staffers to participate, to moving to the departments, and I'm wondering if departments will be like, we're looking at our budget and we don't see that we could afford it, so we can only have a certain number of people signing up because this is all, like if it's coming out of our department budget, nobody budgets for it. So I'm wondering if you think that's going to have an impact on sort of county departments letting their people sign up for.
Commissioner, I'm really glad you brought that up. So for 2 years, we did have a pot of dollars where we were paying. Before 2 years ago, the departments were paying it themselves.
So a shift back.
It was a shift back. And I want to say, I'm going to go back I haven't had this exact conversation, but I could tell you the way the last chair sort of told the department, said, listen, I don't expect that dollars to be an obstacle. And if you have a specific financial need because you can't, then you come to me, and maybe we roll that up into the ask back because there's a supplemental, because we didn't anticipate an event this large. That's what supplemental's for. In all of those years previously, now we didn't quite have as big an event 5 and 6 years ago as we did probably 2 years ago, but no departments ever came back and said, I needed $10,000 for overtime. The two biggest departments, and while I'm here presenting this, I do want to acknowledge Department of County Human Services, they put more people on the ground than any other department. And second is the Health Department. So they're going to take a little bit more of those costs, and they could be six-figure costs. There are also departments with really big budgets, but I have no doubt they'll work closely with the COO if there's a stress. But I also be willing to bet that the CEO is not going to say, you could sit aside this one and not worry about it. I don't think that's a likely scenario.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I guess I would just want a flag if there is some sort of impact, because that was at the very end 2 years ago of, we don't think we can kind of hold it all together. And I say, some people were saying that just on the ground, that things felt unsafe because of the stress and the staff, so I hope you give us a flag up, but thanks for all the work you and your team do to, at the heart, some of the hardest days in the county, that you're keeping things together.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones-Dixon, did you have any questions? No. Okay. So Chris, I would just say, I think you were way too nice about the city's involvement 2 years ago. I think I think our employees were heroic in the way that they stepped up and showed up shift after shift and tried to fill the gaps when we had the city almost completely step back for that. I will say that there has been a marked change with Mayor Wilson and his commitment to have the city be a part of that. And I want to acknowledge that and appreciate that. And that makes me hopeful as we look at this next fiscal year about what we can expect. But I just wanted to put that out there as well. So I appreciate your questions, Commissioner Broome-Edwards, and I also just wanted to say things a little more bluntly than maybe you felt comfortable doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Department or Office of Emergency Management. We now move into our next topic, which is the Office of Sustainability. So I'll invite. So I normally say this during our public budget hearings when we have full rooms. I appreciate everyone showing up. We love public participation involvement. In the boardroom, we go like this when we want to support things, just because we have folks watching and listening online, and we want to make sure everyone can hear what's going on in the boardroom. So with that, I will turn things over to the Director of the Office of Sustainability, John Bashatinsky. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is John Bashatinsky. I'm the Director of Sustainability. I'm joined today by my Office of Sustainability colleagues, and I'm pleased to be here today to present our proposed FY 2026 budget for my office. Next slide, please. During my presentation today, I'll discuss how equity and the mission of the Office of Sustainability fits into the overall mission of the county, review a few key areas of practice for our office, discuss the proposed FY 2026 budget for the office, and leave time for discussions. Next slide, please. At the heart of our mission is equity and environmental justice. These are more than just catchphrases for us. They are the very core of our work. We fundamentally believe that true environmental justice refers to redistributing decision-making power back to the frontline communities that are systemically impacted by environmental racism. Not only does this align us deeply with the core mission and responsibilities of the county, but it's a key to our success in pursuing a climate-stable future with a clean environment for everyone. Throughout my presentation today, you'll hear a key through line: partnership. Partnership with the board and county leadership, partnership with departments, partnership with the community and other local governments to achieve the goals set out by the board for this office. Next slide, please. A core tenet of environmental justice is nothing about us without us. To truly understand how to best serve the needs of our community, we must directly collaborate and invest in communities who have historically lacked resources due to systemic racism. Our collaboration builds priorities and solutions we can construct together, rooted in shared values and vision. The Climate Justice Plan serves as our North Star, connecting government and community priorities, and it's a completely new approach. That's precisely the plan's purpose. We hit a major milestone early this year, presenting the draft Climate Justice Plan to the board. This plan clearly demonstrates our collaboration with the community. We hold firm to the belief that the systems that create unequal opportunities and outcomes were deliberately designed, and that government and community can and must intentionally work to build a more just future for everyone. The plan itself is the outcome of deep collaboration with steering committee of individuals and community-based organizations that represents frontline communities. Our partners include Portland NAACP, Rahab Sisters, Verde, Apano, Coalition for Communities of Colors, Community Energy Project, and many more. Crucially, we also had a parallel process of collaboration with county departments through the Leadership Council and the Climate Leadership Team. This brought together representatives from various county departments to help inform and shape the draft plan, building internal capacity and ensuring alignment. Close collaboration with other jurisdictions, including the City of Portland, the City of Gresham, and Metro, has been key to developing the draft plan and will continue to be a driver for us. This plan boldly asserts that a better world is possible, not despite the climate crisis, but because together we tackle the root causes of the climate crisis, and in so doing, improve the health and well-being of our entire community. Next slide, please. Many of the community members we have connected with had never engaged with Multnomah County before. We provide capacity building and awareness, ensuring their voices and priorities were woven into into every step and goal of the plan. We didn't just solicit feedback. Their stories, expertise, and strong community connections challenged our team to create a plan that transcends traditional government approaches. We empower community members with resources to directly integrate their work into this plan. Community-driven planning isn't a linear process. It's a continuous commitment to strengthening relationships. That includes engagement with the board. We have heard your feedback that the plan needs more work, and we have taken that feedback seriously. Your input will be central to shaping the final version of this iterative planning process. As we move forward to the final version, we'll collaborate with you to identify the resources needed to implement the plan and how strategies build off of a foundation of existing county climate efforts and ensure its relevance to county authority and operations. Your priorities around homeless services, safety, mental health and well-being, and workforce development are all core parts of this plan because those are also our community's priorities. Our goal with this process is to hear from as many people as possible. This is a draft plan. So we want to hear from as many people as possible about the plan and what we have and what they think should be changed or improved. Since the draft has been released, we have met with community-based organizations, church groups, utility partners, tabled at community events, and tonight we are hosting our second of 2 open houses. We have a comment form available on the website in English and Spanish, and we have translated the summary of the plan into 5 languages. I especially want to lift up the efforts of Monique Smiley, my colleague who has definitely led the community engagement process. Her approach is a model of procedural justice, truly embodying that core county commitment to environmental justice and nothing about us without us. Her work is not transactional. It's guided by deep relationships in the community, giving them the tools and understanding to make decisions and prioritize. She actively goes to the community, not only educating and providing needed resources, but also serving as a trusted bridge between community and government. She connects community members not only to our office and provides them with clear understanding of Multnomah County's internal workings. I want to emphasize too that the community is invested in this work and the responses to the draft plan have been very positive. I have here with me a letter from St. Michael's Parish in Northeast Portland, signed by about 50 parishioners. Here's just a brief quote from the letter. We, the undersigned members of St. Michael's and All Angels Episcopal Church, wish to voice our support for the climate justice plan's priorities. We agree that a plan to address climate change in Multnomah County must prioritize the needs of historically marginalized communities and ensure environmental justice. It's also important to build a pollution-free future by reducing greenhouse gas emissions, improving air quality, and increasing community preparedness for climate-related impacts. Solutions should be community-driven and amplify community power, voice, and leadership. I think that's what this plan sets out to do. Next slide, please. Climate justice for us is not an academic exercise. We learn about climate justice by doing. In the immediate aftermath of the 2021 Heat Dome event, sustainability led a novel approach to mapping heat islands in East County, filling a critical gap in our knowledge about the distribution of heat islands outside the city of Portland. The following year, with funding from OHA, the health department was able to repeat the data collection procedure for the rest of the region so that we had our first comprehensive region-wide look at heat islands. The report identified Wood Village as literally one of the hottest places in the entire county region. So it was not surprising when the Wood Village city manager reached out to me asking, what could we do about it? He was particularly concerned about manufactured home parks where the majority of the population lived and many people were low income and linguistically isolated. Fortunately, we were able to act quickly. Earlier in the year, the Office of Sustainability had led a successful regional grant application to the state for the Community Heat Pump Deployment Program, securing $650,000 for the county for heat pump deployment. This allowed us to further leverage our partnership with DCHS Weatherization Services and the wonderful Erin Riddle, the Limited Duration Climate Resilience Program Specialist, who has led our heat pump deployment efforts. At the beginning of last summer, we partnered with Líderes Naturales to identify 34 homes within one of the mobile home communities and to replace old, polluting, inefficient, and in some cases not working furnaces, wood stoves, baseboard heaters, to replace them with modern, energy-efficient heat pumps that provide both home heating and cooling. That helps to reduce pollution, but also increases the climate resilience of the household. We also leveraged board-appropriated one-time only climate resilience funding to provide free portable AC units for another 28 households. Next slide, please. Air quality has long been a priority for our office. Over the years, we led the county's engagement on the establishment of the Clean Air Oregon health-based stationary permitting program for industrial sources, partnered with government relations on the passage of HB 2007 that established air pollution standards for in-use diesel trucks, only the second state in the country to establish such a standard. And we have championed work on reducing pollution from wood smoke, the leading source of human-made particulate matter and air toxics like polyaromatic hydrocarbons. Having worked with the health department and the Board of County Commissioners to establish a wood smoke curtailment program and outreach and education campaign, we shifted our attention to the third leg of the best practices stool to establish a wood stove replacement program. That partnership with DCHS Weatherization Services has allowed us to obtain over $2 million of state and federal funding to serve 200 households throughout the county. What you see on the screen here is a couple that was profiled in Oregonian earlier this year and was served by the Wood Burning Exchange Program. These folks live next to Kellogg Middle School, and over the years, we had received complaints about wood smoke from teachers and parents. But the couple could not afford the cost of upgrading their wood-burning home heating device. You can actually see a picture of the old furnace there. Even though the physical burden was becoming too much for them, the physical burden of chopping and moving wood every day. Fortunately, they heard about our program and qualified, and now they have a modern heat pump that provides energy-efficient heating and cooling, and a house that would have emitted harmful smoke every day of the winter no longer pollutes. Like I said, this same story has been repeated for 200 households, reducing pollution and increasing climate resilience, a true win-win for the community. Next slide, please. The direct investments are crucial, but many of the decisions that shape the just energy future are happening in spaces that are hard to access by impacted households. This is particularly true of decisions about where we get our energy, the cornerstone of meeting our emissions goals. Energy utility greenhouse gas emissions in Multnomah County, nearly half the total emissions, are regulated by the Public Utility Commission, a notoriously complex space to navigate. And to a family, energy means much more than emissions. Energy is how we warm our homes in the winter, stay cool from dangerous heat in the summer, what powers our electronic devices that keeps us connected, runs air filters when the smoke rolls in from a forest fire, and keeps powered medical devices working. It literally can keep someone alive. When we lose energy, it's an emergency. And for too many of our neighbors, it's an emergency because they can't afford to pay. The state of Oregon, in their biannual energy report, has found that 27% of households in Multnomah County are energy burdened. Technically, energy burden means that a household is spending more than 6% of their income on energy expenses. But what it really means is that a family is making difficult choices between the bills they pay. At the board's direction, we prioritize energy justice, advocating for both procedural and distributive justice. This means ensuring fair representation in decision-making processes, as well as equitable distribution of the benefits and burdens in the energy system. For example, we spend a significant amount of time and effort pushing utilities and regulatory forums to be more accessible in languages other than English. Excuse me, lost my place here. We also work to demystify dense jargon and giving weight to the expertise of communities' lived experience. We also invest in building community power to engage in utility proceedings by hosting learning opportunities with other advocates and by facilitating a cohort of community advocates to provide them with the tools to shape their energy future. Our work on energy poverty looks to make sure that decision-making spaces recognize that rates and policies like fees and disconnections do not impact us all equally. So in the last year, we have been advocating to keep that reality in mind while our utility commission has considered rate increases. We have also advocated for stronger disconnection protections and for greater focus on low-income customers having access to clean energy programs that can reduce their energy bills and use. Thanks to our coalition efforts, earlier this week, just this week, the Public Utility Commission expanded temporary protections for at-risk families, mandating no disconnection when there's extreme heat in the forecast and after a severe heat or air quality event, and also no reconnection fees for community members with the very lowest income. As you heard from our colleagues in DCHS last week, the number of families that are served by traditional energy assistance programs is far outstripped by the need. That's why we have worked so hard not only to pass legislation to create the low-income rate, but worked with our partners to ensure that the programs are accessible. For example, making sure that eligibility is a self-attestation process, making sure application forms are available in multiple languages, and working to promote awareness of the program in the community. We estimate that the program in PGE territory alone, and mind you, this applies to all three utilities, brings $60 million a year in benefits to Multnomah County ratepayers. We secured approximately a $200,000 grant to support low and no cost energy efficiency workshop and promote awareness of low income rate programs through culturally specific partners in East County. Classes and workshops are conducted in Spanish by trusted community members. These programs are needed now more than ever as people spend more time at home, scared of interactions with law enforcement, and they may not otherwise take advantage of a program for fear of public charge. Trusted community partners can help spread the word and assure people these programs are safe and legitimate. I want to lift up my colleague Sylvia Tanner in this work. She is an energy policy and law expert and has her JD from Lewis and Clark. She also had a past life as an English to Spanish translator and has brought her skills and passion to make Multnomah County a well-recognized leader and ally to community in the fight for energy and climate justice. This is the real work of energy justice, in community rooms, church basements, and living rooms, helping people pay their bills, stay warm, and keep their lights on. Next slide, please. Clean energy and decarbonization and many other climate strategies not only lead to less pollution, but they also help make our communities more resilient. That is certainly true of trees. Trees make our neighborhoods cooler, storing carbon dioxide in the wood and roots, clean the air and water, and my favorite, create oxygen. A tree-lined street will literally lead to better health outcomes for the people who live there. But in Multnomah County, the history of racist redlining practices has led to stark disparities in urban tree canopy distribution. When we realized that Gresham did not have a tree planting program and that neighborhoods in West Gresham like Centennial and Rockwood had the lowest tree canopy, we took action. Partnering with the city of Gresham and Friends of Trees, Multnomah County secured $200,000 of funding to plant over 600 trees in the past 5 years. Those efforts are now being amplified with new federal funding and projects like pavement removal and tree planting to address the worst heat islands. We are also working to innovate and nurture new ideas like community resilience hubs. The idea is that we should have places where the lights stay on, the air stays clean, and we have heating and cooling if we need it, even if there is a major disaster. We have developed our own body of work, for example, looking at what it would take to turn the East County Homeless Services Center into a resilience hub, and also working with community partners like Morningstar Church in Northeast Portland to help them find partners and funding. Further, we know that a key yet underrated way to build resilience to a changing climate is to create and strengthen relationships. I really want to highlight here the work of my colleague Sarah Mim, who in addition to managing and designing and implementing our print and digital communications, is also in charge of community and employee engagement. A large-scale community resilience fair called the Learn, Share, Do Fair is organized by Sarah on behalf of our team alongside the City of Portland, the City of Gresham, and Community Services Network. The Learn, Share, Do Fair has been held 3 times in East County at Centennial High School and welcomed upwards of 600 community members at each event. At the Learn, Share, Do Fair, we offer direct services to county residents in a fun, family-oriented way. Free lunch for everyone, free bags of pantry items from the Oregon Food Bank, free bicycle helmets and air purifiers to protect indoor air quality, and kid-friendly activities like face painting, creative reuse, and indoor play areas make it easy to bring the whole family and enjoy an experience without spending any money. We feature community resources from county programs and services and expertise like weatherization, the library, emergency management, environmental health, safe routes to school, and water quality. And we always dedicate space for county partners like Friends of Trees, the Citizen Utility Board, and Community Energy Project, among many others. The hundreds of face-to-face interactions with service providers at Learn, Share, Do events enables residents to build relationships with county staff and partner in a fun, casual, and no-cost way. Most importantly, the relationships that Learn, Share, Do Fair facilitates and are strengthened before a wildfire smoke event, before an earthquake, before utilities continue to skyrocket, and before life-threatening extreme heat. The next Learn, Share, Do event is this Saturday, actually. We welcome you to join us there. It's going to be at Floyd Light Middle School from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. In outer Southeast Portland. The event is free and open to the public, and I hope you come.
And I just want to do a time check. We started a little late, so this can go a little bit late, but I want to make sure we can get through all the budget material.
Sure.
Okay.
Next slide, please. Our office has its roots in enterprise sustainability from campaigns like Take Back the Tap and in partnership with the Sheriff's Office Sustainability in Jails program to make the county prioritize a culture of environmental stewardship. And while our work has grown and evolved from a more narrow environmental focus, enterprise sustainability remains a core part of what we do today. We appreciate Commissioner Broome-Edwards' question from earlier this week, and earlier today I sent a response in coordination with DCA. What's important for you to take away today is that the county has a long-standing goal of reducing environmental footprint, including reducing greenhouse gas emissions. This graph is from our annual resource conservation report, and you can see that our emissions, our greenhouse gas emissions, are 67% below the 2007 baseline year, and that that's in excess of the goal that we set for ourselves. Next slide, please. I also want to highlight that we're working on further innovations. Earlier this year, we sustainability partnered with DCA Fleet Services and Facilities on a fleet decarbonization accelerator. We learned from peers in our cohort and experts about the best ways to decarbonize a fleet, electrify a fleet. And now that we've completed the cohort, we're developing a fleet decarbonization action plan. We're also expanding our fleet. This year, we actually doubled the size of the EV fleet at Multnomah County. We're also looking at other innovations. We were able to secure a $100,000 grant from the Oregon Department of Energy to do design work for a battery energy storage system at the new East County Library. Earlier this year, the library team decided that they were going to implement that project, and our East County Library, when it's complete, will be the first building that we have that has a solar-powered microgrid. When the lights are on and everything's functioning normally, they'll be able to use that battery to integrate more renewable energy onto the grid, and we'll actually be getting a bill credit from the utility, and when the lights go out, we'll be able to maintain and operate systems using that stored energy. Next slide, please. Not everybody knows this, but we have a farm. The Crops Farm started out as a truck farm at the former site of the Poor Farm in Troutdale. And we set out to just grow food so we can provide fresh fruits and vegetables for community pantries. We retired that model, but the program continues. We've partnered with Mudbone Grown and Feed 'em and Freedom that now manage the farm on our behalf. We've combined to make investments in greenhouses, high tunnels, an advanced composting system, a hydroponic truck farm, a new barn, electricity, water. It's a demonstration site. We're finally wrapping up work on that site, and I'm going to invite everyone to a grand opening later this summer. I really can't wait. It's an amazing program that's helping to foster Black entrepreneurship in East County When we started this project, the USDA Census identified 2 Black farmers in Multnomah County. And that number has grown, but this disparity still remains. And through projects like this, we're able to amplify, we're able to try to redress some of that historic inequity. Next slide, please. We also have our Advisory Committee on Sustainability and Innovation. This brings together professionals from around our county, people who work in the nonprofit sector, people who work for business, folks who are community leaders, and they have been able to give us key insights over the years, leading to the establishment of programs like our Property Fit Energy Financing Program, and elevating air quality issues as a primary driver of health disparities. As we look ahead, AXI we imagine a bigger role for AXI in the implementation of the Climate Action Plan, and we look forward to working with you on that. And you can see here a recommendation from their most recent letter. Next slide, please. As you can see in this slide, with the 12% constraint in the chair's proposed budget, and an expiration of one-time only funding, the county's general fund investment in the office will drop by almost 30%. Grant funds administered directly by the Office of Sustainability are also coming to a close for the most part, with the expectation of state funding that supports our outreach work that I mentioned earlier on energy efficiency and low-income programs to continue into the next fiscal year. Next slide, please. Here you can see the combined impact of expiring grants and one-time only funding, and the 12% constraint with overall reduction, and the 12% constraint, the overall reduction is north of 40% from our current fiscal year to the next. You can also see the reduction, the constraint results in the reduction of an FTE. Next slide, please. This is a standard slide that you've seen under the chair's proposed budget. You can see the impact of the constraint reducing 1 FTE. The Climate Resilience Coordinator has been an important part of our team in recent years. That's the position that will be eliminated. They have developed our area of practice with resilience hubs, led our work on engagement with grassroots resilience networks, including the East County Resilience Network, and taking the lead on grant writing, supporting the development of many of the successful grants I mentioned, and also working on community partners to develop grant applications for their own organizations. Next slide, please. As you can see, the majority of the budget is dedicated to personnel, but we also have contractual services. Those funds would support our Learn, Share, Do events, pay for grant writing support, especially with the loss of the position I just mentioned, support implementation of stipends, the stipends for AXI members, pay for needed tree work at the crops farm to address recently identified structural deficiencies in some of the trees, pay for summer watering of the trees that we have already planted in parks, at schools, and along busy roads, and help support ongoing engagement with our Climate Justice Plan, steering committee members, and other consultant services to help us complete the Climate Justice Plan. Next slide, please. Here again is just another slide that shows you the constraint and how it's impacting the office. Next slide, please. Here you see our small but mighty team, with each member of the team represented by AFSCME Local 88, with the exception of myself. In the Office of Sustainability, we envision a community and a world where everyone experiences life in a stable climate, has a safe place to live, and can access clean air, clean water, and the resources they need to thrive. Every member of this team demonstrates this commitment, their commitment to this vision through their actions every day. Next slide, please. The climate crisis is now upstream of many of the issues that the county grapples with, including public health, housing, emergency management, cost of living, and public safety. The climate crisis further strains each of these areas and our ability to respond. The Office of Sustainability has worked with the board, county leadership, departments, and the community to tackle these difficult environmental challenges, and as I've talked about already throughout this presentation. But there's so much more to our work. Finding solutions for harmful algal blooms in the Willamette River, addressing the imminent threat of catastrophe from the CEI hub, and expanding the capacity of our departments and local jurisdictions to partner to respond to environmental justice issues in the climate crisis. I'm closing on this image of our energy justice cohort. What you see in this picture is government, nonprofit partners, and community members coming together to joyfully fight for a more fair, just, and equitable future for our community. And in my mind, that fight for fairness is what this office is all about. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks so much. Appreciate the presentation of all the work that your office does, John. I'll open it up to the board for any questions. All right, Commissioner Singleton.
Thank you. Thank you, John, for the presentation and for the work that we've been able to do together with AXI, and just appreciate all of the members of that board. And I look forward to pulling them in, particularly in the green jobs conversation that we started last month, into the workforce table that Commissioner Jones-Dixon and I have convened. So that soon to come, we're going to wrap up with the trades first. You mentioned in your presentation that most grant funds in the office that you administer will be coming to an end. Which grants, are there grants that you currently have that will carry into 26? And if so, what are those?
There's one grant that we have through the state that's supporting our work with East County culture-specific groups in the Community Energy Project to promote energy efficiency and low-income rate programs to those populations. The other grants were really focused on our wood smoke or wood burning replacement program, and those funds are fully expended at this point, and there's the grant's over, we spent the money. We also have a grant coming to a close from tree planting with the East Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District. Those funds that work is going to continue with funding that the Friends of Trees has and the City of Gresham now has.
Thank you. And what are grants that you have helped get in other departments that may not be administered through you?
Sure. We partnered with the health department on the $1 million EPA government-to-government grant that they received. That grant is focused on the Rockwood neighborhood to make it a more climate resilience community. It included funding to support the Blueprint Foundation. They're building air quality monitors and then deploying them throughout the community in order to better understand what the air quality impacts are in that neighborhood. Tree planting, home energy retrofits, and then supplies to help improve indoor air quality for apartment dwellers as well. So that's one of the grants. We also worked with the DCHS Weatherization Services and successfully applied for a $2 million grant from the U.S. Department of Energy that's going to support deep energy retrofits for their clients. And also look at ways that they can go beyond just energy efficiency and also improve indoor air quality. I mentioned the grant we got from the Oregon Department of Energy for studying the development of the battery energy storage system. And there's probably a few others. We've also worked, I mentioned, the East County Resilience Hub. They really were focused on trying to get state funding. And so we were able to come alongside them and, work to write the grant, kind of corral people together, understand what the application was. Unfortunately, that wasn't successful. But yeah, I think the community participants really appreciated the help that we were able to give in that instance. And, we go fishing a lot. We don't always catch fish, but, so there's other grants that we haven't gotten as well.
I could probably spend days talking about resiliency hubs, and you already shared a bunch. I'm just curious if there's anything that you see in session at the state around potential dollars coming down the pipe for community resiliency hubs.
Yeah, I mean, there is a bill this session that would further fund community resilience networks. The money for the current biennium has been distributed in grants already. And unfortunately, that was the funding we were going after with community partners. So unfortunately, none of that came to Multnomah County. The good news is, at least in the city of Portland, that there is funding for this type of work. So I mentioned Morningstar Church. They were able to get a Portland Clean Energy Fund grant that's funding improvements in their building so that they can add solar behind the meter, in front of the meter, new HVAC systems, air filters, all that really good stuff that helps them. It's also the site of one of our Preschool for All facilities.
Awesome. Thank you. If you could just send me a follow-up of that bill number, I'd love to continue to work with the state as well to get money for outside of the city of Portland.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I just really appreciate you. I appreciate you and your team and the work that you're doing. I know it's difficult, and I'm one of the folks who is proposing reductions in your department. I think it's really critical to know that there are many places that I'm proposing reductions, and it's not just the Office of Sustainability, it's the chair's office, it's the COO's office, it's department programs. And I want to continue to work with you to find ways that we can make sure to offset the cuts that we need to ensure that we have some of our critical safety net services that weren't funded in the chair's proposed budget. So I hope we continue to have some conversations as the budget amendment process moves forward.
Thanks. Any other questions for John? Commissioner Graham Edwards.
Thanks for the presentation and also for sliding some reading material in at my lunchtime today. I went through it and just have a couple questions about some of the programmatic things and then also how they connect to your performance measures. And when you hear the questions, you're not going to be surprised at all because they're just repeat a little bit from last year. My first question, and this kind of builds out into what I was asking the Department of Community Assets the other day about just sort of the facilities we have and how this is coordinated, how your office's work is coordinated with the Department of Community Assets. And I am looking at this slide right here. There's not a page number on it, so, but you know which one I'm talking about. I'm curious, is there in the county plan, I didn't see it, is there a net zero goal at some point in the future?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to, I'm going to blank on the resolution number, but the county's 100 by 50 resolution is, sets out that for the entire community, including our buildings, that we get to 100% renewable energy, including gas and transportation fuels. So yes, we don't yet have.
Is that 2050?
That's a 2050 goal, yes, correct.
So just so I understand your performance measure in the program offer, it says decrease in community-wide greenhouse gas emissions over 1990 levels based on trend line analysis. So, and then it has a target for FY26 is 25%. When you say community-wide, you mean like all sources of greenhouse gas?
We measure, so our partners at the City of Portland track greenhouse gas emissions for the entirety of Multnomah County. So both, all the government, all industry, individual households, et cetera. And they track scope 1 and 2 emissions. So basically transportation fuels, natural gas, electricity. They don't track scope 3 is consumption-based emission standards. So that's a scope 1 and 2 for the entire community. And we highlight that outcome metric because we feel that that's really what we're trying to do as an office is to influence, policy and programs so that overall emissions trend down in line with what, the IPCC has identified as the necessary fully zeroing out fossil fuel use by 2050.
So I'd love to see what community-wide, the entire definition, because I think it's pretty aggressive to have a 25% reduction in 1 year for something that's not ours. Is that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just looking at what.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not. It's meant to be like. It's only a point or two. So like, it's the current. Above the current percent reduction. So it's not a 25%. Maybe I could present that more clearly, or if they let me put a graph in there, it would be more clear. But
I was gonna say you're like a miracle worker if you could.
Yeah, no, it's just like it's a slight, like I think we're like 24% or something like right now, and then like to go from.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
It would be great to have that clarified.
Yep.
And
sure.
I'm curious though, because having been involved in several other efforts with just large public institutions, Portland Public Schools, Oregon State, the focus really is like on what the entity has control of. And So I'm wondering if you have, and it's not in your performance metrics, but do you have a performance metric for the county that, of what the reduction we would want to have? I mean, the things that we can control.
The current performance metric for greenhouse gas emissions was set in the 2015 Climate Action Plan, which was a 57% reduction over our 2007 baseline year by the year 2030. As you saw from that slide, our reduction has gone beyond that. And like I said, now we have to go even further and address natural gas use and transportation fuel use.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like whatever happened in 2017, we had a big decrease, and then it's essentially, it seems like it's flattening out. So I guess it's just a follow-up unrelated to your budget. I'd be interested in, it's like, where do we see it going down even further? And then a sort of click down from that is, I think I asked last year about just my concern about us, sort of our advocacy in other places when we don't have yet, have our own house yet, sort of on the trajectory to really lower greenhouse gas emissions through our motor vehicle fleet. So I hadn't seen that. I think this afternoon was the first time I saw the fleet services and the fleet decarbonization. Can you send us information on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because what DCA presented the other day was that we have very few electric vehicles in our overall fleet.
We had 4, we now have 8. So
I asked you what the doubling was.
yeah,
Okay,
so,
thank you.
when the baseline is low, doubling is pretty easy. But yeah, I mean, I think thanks to your interest and leadership in this area, it's really kind of helped us kickstart this effort to develop a plan. And I think this is an area where like a resolution from the board or, an administrative procedure can help fleet services really push towards the EV alternative when it's available.
And I know there's all kinds of complications from last year of some of the fleets, whether it's the sheriff's office, that there's, it's complicated. I also think the county will have a higher high ground when we've are on a trajectory to get to zero carbon emissions. And then the other question I had is, I think the one I asked last year, any progress on the heat islands in D3, which are 205 and 82nd, just because the concrete?
Yeah. I'll highlight
Like what's happening in East County, but I'm just wanting some of that love to move west.
I'll just highlight one really cool example. So a few years ago, we partnered with Apano to get an EPA technical assistance grant. And they were looking at the Jade District and this lack of parks, lack of green space. And we had, and through that partnership, identified parcels that would be ideal for a park. But they weren't available at that time. Just this year, Apano actually secured that land, and they can now actually go ahead and start fundraising and building a park. So in this, the Jade District is, as you're well aware, sort of hemmed in by 82nd and I-205, and is sort of the center of the
Right in the heart of my district.
Yeah, southeast. I also was on the technical advisory committee for the urban forestry plan, which they updated. Their city of Portland's updating for the first time in 25 years. So there is action, and again, because of the availability of clean energy funds, substantial investments in urban forestry, 82nd Street improvements, et cetera, are going to be going forward, and hopefully over time addressing those. I mean, the problem with urban heat islands is you plant a tree and it's this big, it's very small. So you need to keep it watered and make sure it grows, and over time that's going to help address it.
If you could send me just follow-up information on both those initiatives, like the address of the Apano property, and then whatever's happening with PSEF as well. I'd appreciate it.
Yep.
And just the last, if you could send me whatever additional information you have on the Fleet Decarbonization Accelerator cohort, it'd be great. Thank you.
Commissioner, I just wanted to add on the piece around some of the different heat islands. We did some really good work with the community benefits work on the bridge, and that I think really can help address some of this. And I think there's transportation investments offer opportunity to really do some different things that benefit the community in a way that we didn't used to do with transportation projects. So I encourage the 82nd Ave conversation to include some of that and look at where there's partners who might have resources to come leverage in, because the projects can't always pay for those things by themselves.
Hopefully, there's two big unlocks with 82nd Avenue. One, that the transition from being a state highway to locally owned, but also the fact that there's now 6 members of the city council who care about 82nd. Not that they didn't before, but because of the overlapping. Yeah, well, I won't comment on that. But I think there is a lot more energy, and actually there are some, in the work that's happening right now, already some tree planting, but it's still, you know, when it's hot in Portland, it's really hot on 82nd, and 205 is also just another whole heat dome as well.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Commissioner Jones-Dixon, did you have any questions?
Yeah, well, comments.
And I just want to, I'm just saying, we still have preschool for all, and we already bumped them once, so I want to make sure that folks are, have the flexibility to stay late so they can get through their whole presentation. And I also wanted to note, sorry for the record, that Commissioner Moyer had an excused absence, so this was something that we knew ahead of time that she was going to have to leave this meeting early for, and I didn't announce it at the beginning of the meeting. So, okay,
Great.
take it away.
Great. Thank you, John, for the presentation. And Sylvia, Monique, and Tim, and Sarah, thank you for your service as well, and thank you for grounding us in the work that you're doing. Was just reminded that we don't have a PSEF in East Multnomah County. That's why I asked some of the questions regarding the climate justice, the initial plan. So thank you for highlighting all the great work that you're doing out in East Multnomah County and prioritizing addressing the needs that we have out there in our office. Is looking forward to working with you deeply in the future as far as preventing things that lead to eco gentrification. And I personally have a lot to learn. I come from a family that's served in the EJAC movement here in Oregon and Portland specifically. So I'm humbled once again. So thank you for your service, and thank you for your support this afternoon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Appreciate the work that you and your small but mighty team do for the county and all your partnership over the years on so many different areas. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So we're going to do transition now over to Preschool for All. For those of you who do not want to hear more about the work of the Preschool and Early Learning Division, you are welcome to quietly exit through the back of the room as we make that transition. Thank you. Nobody else really cares except for Christian.
So this is an amendment that I'm putting on the table on behalf of co-sponsoring with Commissioner Singleton. And this is the lobbying and transparency program. And as everybody knows, that we've already approved an ordinance, a timeline, initial transfer of funds. The CEO, Chris Neal, provided an update to us on the status of implementation and the need to carry over that $200,000 in capital funding, carry that over, and then that an additional $200,000 in one-time only general funds will be needed. So this is an amendment to do that, and the offset of the $200,000 would come from the information technology, beginning working capital and other not yet identified county administrative savings.
Great. Thank you for making efficient use of our time.
Sorry.
All right.
We still have a few seconds.
I know.
To spare.
Here's a lemon drop if folks want to take a lemon drop and pass it down. We need to keep the board happy. Good afternoon. Okay, so for our last topic for today's work session, we have the Preschool and Early Learning Division within the Department of County Human Services back. Thank you so much for your flexibility. DCHS is a really big department and we had a lot of divisions to get through the first day. And so really glad that we have time to walk through your budget presentation for this division. Really happy to have you guys here. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon. I get to be to kick it off for a little bit here, and I wanted to thank you. Hopefully, we'll stick to our time here. So because of that, I'll read my talking points so that I don't go over my time. So good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Mohammed Bader. I am a DCHS director, and I use he, him pronouns. And as the chair mentioned, PAL is part of DCHS. Preschool for All is a critical piece of the continuum of care of that DCHS provides. If you recall, I talked about that when we talked initially about DCHS. Investing in our youngest community members, supporting them with a strong foundation and development as they get ready for kindergarten is not only beneficial for those children and families, but has an impact on our entire community. PFA is a program that prevents so many of the challenges we face in our community. One of the most incredible, unique aspects of PFA is the commitment to all children, and no matter what model. As the auditor said in her report, the no expulsion rule addresses disparities to participating in preschool. PFA has training and policies that prevent children from being kicked out or expelled from preschool. I want to say, as a parent, that impacted me greatly when my son was 3 years old. My son, Gabe, was actually kicked out of preschool because he did have an ADHD that we later learned about. And it was really hard for me as a parent, for my wife and myself, to really quit work, figure out which other program that might take him. I'm very proud here of the work of Leslie and her team and Brooke, that they brought this in our programs, that no expulsion, and they have provided a lot of support in terms of mental health support and other supports needed for providers to keep those kids in there. Also, I wanted to mention, as the auditor stated in her report, a study conducted by City Health and the National Institute for Early Education Research reported that high-quality, accessible preschool programs can have long-term benefits for children. It noted that children who participate in preschool have lower rates of teen pregnancy and committing crime. They also have higher lifetime earnings and better health outcomes as adults than children who did not attend preschool. Additionally, the brain development and social interactions children experience during preschool are associated with improved mental health in adulthood. We need high quality and universal preschool now more than ever, during a time when we face critical challenges as a county like homelessness. Investing in our youngest community members is essential. We know that preschool programs have a significant impact on graduation rates, housing stability, and overall health and wellness. With universal preschool, Multnomah County will be a desirable place to live for the best talent and will be a shining asset to everyone who lives here. We're excited to see the growth in PFA has planned for this year. And I will turn now to Leslie, who's done really an amazing job implementing this program, for her to start the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners, for having us today. For the record, my name is Leslie Barnes. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Director of the Preschool and Early Learning Division in the Department of County Human Services. So we'll be walking you through fiscal year 2026 Preschool for All budget. We plan to leave about half of our time today for questions that you may have. We have included additional details about the budget and Preschool for All in the appendix, including some of the information that we covered in our April 15th presentation. Next slide, please.
I just want to confirm, you guys have a hard stop at 4:15? Okay. It might be 3:45. We'll see how it goes. Okay, thanks.
So I want to start us out today by telling you a little bit about Patricia, who's a single mom and a nurse. Because of her struggle to find and care for her daughter, Patricia left her job. Preschool for All changed things for Patricia, allowing her to return to her career and giving her daughter a rich learning environment. Patricia's daughter, Susanna, has truly blossomed in preschool, becoming a better friend, a more confident leader, and a thriving member of her school community. She's sleeping better, eating new foods, building close friendships, and really growing into herself. Preschool for All brings Patricia and many other families in Multnomah County the relief of having a preschool provider that they trust and partner with. Children, their families, and the economy are all better off when there are easily accessible, high-quality early education options. The Center for American Progress found that in 2023, 2.2 million parents bless you, in the U.S. with children under age 6 needed to make significant job changes due to the challenges with childcare. Women disproportionately make career sacrifices and suffer pay cuts due to problems with childcare, resulting in a more significant disparities in lifetime earnings for women who become mothers. Next slide, please. This budget will give 3,800 children in our community free early childhood education. PFA will have enough seats for 27% of children in Multnomah County next year. With Preschool Promise, Oregon Prenatal to Kindergarten, and Head Start, there will be enough publicly funded seats for over 40% of the 3 and 4-year-olds in the county. 65% of PFA sites in FY 2026 are offering full-day, full-year preschool. These seats are 10 hours per day, which is what families often need to balance work and raising their children. Right now, about 790 educators are working in Preschool for All sites. These sites have committed as a result of joining PFA to provide higher wages to their educators as well as paid time off and health insurance. The number of PFA educators will dramatically increase next year because we will become almost 50 new providers and add over 80 new locations. As a result of facilities funding, 500 new Preschool for All seats will be created in Multnomah County. Next slide, please. As we develop this budget, we are prioritizing these 4 goals. First, we are maintaining a clear focus on racial equity, language diversity, and intentional supports for children with disabilities. This includes our community preschool expansion program that will help culturally specific organizations who are experts in their communities start preschool programs. We're also providing additional funds to ensure that preschool programs can translate materials and provide interpretation for families who speak languages other than English. Second, this budget increases Preschool for All seats by 71%. Our goal has always been to grow thoughtfully and to build a strong and sustainable program. This budget includes creating a new position that focuses on providers who aren't yet participating in Preschool for All to do additional outreach and information sharing. Third, in FY25, we have significantly decreased underspending. This budget takes further steps to continue that trend. And finally, as we enter our 4th year of implementation, we have learned a lot. This is our final year of the pilot stage and pilot sites. We've finalized many of our systems and policies and have a strong foundation to build on as we grow to universal preschool. We will continue to learn and improve, including feedback from the new Provider Advisory Group. Next slide, please. Finally, as we enter our 4th year, in this presentation, you will see a distinction in the slide titles. Most of them either say PFA Countywide or PEL. This distinction exists because Preschool for All funding is used in 4 parts of the county: the Department of County Human Services, the Department of County Management, the Health Department, and non-departmental investments in the Communications Office and in the Chair's office. Slides that say PFA Countywide include all of the Preschool for All investments. Slides that say PEL are specific to the Department of County Human Services. PEL is housed within DCHS and manages 95% of the Preschool for All operating budget. We will spend the majority of our time today focused on PEL operating expenses. Next slide, please. The total Preschool for All budget includes $172 million of operating expenses. The Preschool for All Contingency Fund allows the Preschool and Early Learning Division to address unforeseen expenses during the fiscal year. The fund was established in fiscal year 2022, and based on board policy, each year we add a top-off amount that brings the contingency fund to 10% of the expected revenue for that year. The FY26 expected revenue is $175 million. So this year, the budget includes a top-off amount of $1.2 million for the contingency fund. Included in the budget is also a repayment of $3.9 million to the contingency fund. This is a result of a budget modification brought to the board in September of 2024. The budget modification added 154 mid-year seats in January of 2025. The Preschool for All Reserve Fund supports the long-term financial stability of the program and protects against the volatility of personal income tax as a revenue source. Each year funding is added to bring the reserve fund to 15% of the expected revenue for that year. The fiscal year 2026 budget includes adding $1.8 million to the reserve fund. Along with the contingency and reserve funds, dedicated savings are Preschool for All's third fiscal stability strategy. Contingency and reserves are long-term fiscal stability strategies. Dedicated savings are a shorter-term strategy. As Jeff Renfro shared with you all in April, dedicated savings will be used to fill the expected gap between revenues and expenses between fiscal years 2027 and 2037. Additional information about dedicated savings from the April presentation is also included in the appendix. Dedicated savings allow Preschool for All to keep its commitment to voters and provide consistent services for Multnomah County children and families. In the current modeling, the gap between projected revenue and expenses is over $500 million. In the long term, the gap between expenses and revenues closes, and the yearly revenue fully funds the program. Next slide, please. The countywide PFA operating budget is increasing 62%. The vast majority of these increases are happening within the PEL budget, and we will cover those changes in the next section. Next slide, please. In the FY25 budget, Preschool for All funded 0.5 FTE of a senior policy advisor in the chair's office. This investment is increasing to fund a total of 1 FTE in the chair's office. This includes 0.5 FTE of a senior policy advisor and a 0.5 FTE of chair's office staff focused on communications. The FY26 budget also adds 1 FTE in the central communications area dedicated to Preschool for All. PFA dollars going to the health department fund a team of early childhood mental health professionals that support preschool providers, families, and children. The Department of County Management is responsible for managing the contract with the City of Portland to collect the Preschool for All tax and has 1 FTE devoted to tax administration. Next slide, please. The vast majority of Preschool for All dollars are spent in the community, with 92% of funds going to contractual services, just under 7% is going to county personnel, and 1% to internal services, and less than 1% to materials and supplies. Now I'm going to pass it to Brooke. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Leslie. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Brooke Chilton-Timmons, and I use she, her pronouns. We will now focus on the Preschool and Early Learning Division operating budget. Next slide, please. In fiscal year 2026, Preschool for All will have expanded into almost all areas of Multnomah County. Many family members and community members have been excited about our growth in Southwest Portland specifically. There are now only 3 zip codes in the county that do not have at least 1 Preschool for All site. By participating in Preschool for All, providers receive stable and timely funding that helps them pay their staff and run their businesses. Because of this, many providers are able to expand. Next year, 23% of our existing providers will be growing their PFA partnership to another location. Next slide, please. The PEL operating budget is growing by 67%, and FTE is growing by 25%. One important thing to note as we continue to look at the PEL budget is that we will be comparing the FY 2025 adopted budget to the FY 2026 approved budget. This is consistent with how budgets are presented each year across the county. But the 2025 adopted budget does not include that $3.5 million budget modification that Leslie mentioned and was used to add mid-year seats this January. Next slide, please. The approved budget includes 10 positions in PEL and 1 position in DCHS Business Services. The 10 positions includes 3 positions focused on the inclusion of children with disabilities, 3 positions who work directly with providers to support their participation in Preschool for All, 2 positions focused on helping families apply for PFA, 1 contracting position, and 1 supervisor. The new position in DCHS Business Services will also be focused on contracting. In the internal county planning before Preschool for All got started, it was important that the program funded administrative positions to avoid having a detrimental impact on the department. Built into our planning as the program grows are assumptions about the number of positions that we need in order to do this work well. For example, we anticipate adding a contract liaison for every 35 new contracts and a support specialist on the application enrollment team for every 1,500 new Preschool for All seats. We review these assumptions each year. Next slide, please. This year's PEL operating budget is an increase of $65.4 million. $52 million, or 80% of the increased funding, is to grow the number of Preschool for All seats to 3,800 in program offer 25205. This includes funding for seats, staff and PEL to support sites to participate in Preschool for All, and funding for the inclusion of children with disabilities. Another additional significant increase is for infant toddler stabilization in program offer 25207. This represents $8.4 million, or 13% of the total increase. These funds go directly to preschool providers to support pay equity for teachers who work with infants and toddlers. As the number of Preschool for All locations increase, so does the amount of funding for infant toddler stabilization. Included in the budget is an increase to the Preschool for All Facilities Fund of $2.2 million, which represents 3% of the overall increase. This investment will create 500 new Preschool for All seats in the community. You can see this change in program offer 25203. Changes to program offer 25201 include $500,000 to support the work of the technical advisory group that will be advising the board on potential changes to the Preschool for All tax, evaluation work with Boston University, and will include funding for incentives to encourage families, educators, and providers to participate. To date, that work has primarily been paid for by the Kellogg Foundation. Program offer 25201 also includes $240,000 of new funding for communication support through an outside consultant. Other significant changes include investments in nursing support in program offer 25204 to ensure that children with medical needs are able to fully participate in preschool. Next slide, please. 93% of the Preschool for All, or the PEL operating budget, is contracted out in the community. 74% of those funds will go directly to preschool providers. Next slide, please. We have 4 division outcome statements. Our first outcome is that all children in Multnomah County have access to free preschool. Preschool prepares them for the transition to kindergarten through 12th grade and future success. We measure this outcome in a few different ways. For example, we have a kindergarten transition module in our family survey that our external research partners at Boston University Center on the Ecology of Early Development administer. This summer, 1,075 children are expected to make the transition from Preschool for All to kindergarten, and we are looking forward to learning about the experience of children and their families. Another important area where we collect data is social emotional learning. This includes how enrolled children express strong emotions like sadness or anger, as well as skills with their peers, such as taking turns. We know that for these outcomes to be meaningful, a key first step is making sure families understand the importance of attendance. Preschool for All has a goal that 80% of children attend regularly. In FY25, we are meeting this goal. Next slide, please. This is our second outcome statement. Families are equal partners in creating responsive and equitable preschools. While our Preschool for All evaluation assesses child-based outcomes, we focus deeply on the factors that enable a child to learn and grow. We know that one key factor in a child's learning is a strong school-family partnership. I recently got to go and celebrate the 20th anniversary of my children's preschool. Although my kids are now 8, 11, and 17, seeing the educators that believed in my children when they were little and supported me was really special. Knowing that your children are seen, valued, and loved by their educators is the foundation for strong communication and partnership. In a 2024 survey administered by our evaluation partners, we learned that 97% of survey respondents felt that they had a good relationship with their child's teacher. 95% felt comfortable talking to their school leader if they had a problem. These are both important examples about how a family can be a partner in their child's learning. Next slide, please. Having access to tuition-free preschool can be life-changing for families, especially economically. Our third outcome statement is that through PFA, families can continue to go to work, build a career, pay their bills, and contribute to the economy. We want families to be able to make the choices that are best for their family. Our outcome measures for this statement are still in development as we are working to do that in partnership with families. However, we know that having access to tuition-free preschool is an important first step, and 3,800 children will receive free preschool in fiscal year 2026. Having options is also very important. Families can choose from 218 Preschool for All locations next year with a variety of schedules. Our final outcomes, next slide, please. Our final outcome statement relates to the people who make PFA possible, educators. In fiscal year 2025, we have about 790 educators across PFA sites, and we expect that number to increase significantly next year. The fourth outcome statement is that preschool teachers are diverse, culturally responsive, highly qualified, and fairly compensated. The data points we show here are key outputs that highlight that last piece around fair compensation. All educators in Preschool for All receive higher wages. $29.42 is the minimum wage for a Preschool for All lead teacher. This requirement is significantly higher than the state average. We also work with preschools to ensure their educators are offered benefits. As a baseline requirement, PFA sites must have paid time off and offer health insurance to their educators. Some of the outcome measures for this statement are still in development. We have a number of workforce efforts that focus on increasing the number of culturally responsive, highly qualified educators in Multnomah County. These efforts take more time to demonstrate outcomes because we're investing in things like training, certification, and degree attainment. Next slide, please. I'm going to pass it back to Leslie.
Thank you. Our 25-26 primary application period closed on April 30th. We wanted to share.
Microphone.
Thank you. I'll start again. Our 25-26 primary application period closed on April 30th, and we want to share an update about that progress with you so far. Overall, we've received over 3,300 applications. 91% of families who completed the application were satisfied or highly satisfied with their application experience. Couple important notes about this data. We expect these numbers to shift slightly during our ongoing process to clean and refine the data. On the slide, you see some of our priority populations highlighted. While this data is preliminary, it tells us two things. We continue to reach our priority populations and see them well represented in our application pool. We continue watching this data. When we analyze data on who applies, who receives an offer, and who enrolls, we find that our priority populations make up a greater proportion of placement offers and who enrolls compared to the overall applicant pool. Next slide, please. On this slide, you'll see a breakdown of the inclusive identity of applicants for the 25-26 year. As you look at this chart, please remember that we review these for general trends and takeaways as opposed to the exact numbers. This is because our data shifts slightly throughout the year. We made one significant change in the way we collect race and ethnicity data this year. In previous years, we have not included a decline to answer option for families. However, given the current climate across the country, we feel it's important to give families an option to not identify their race or ethnicity if they choose. This change does mean that comparing this disaggregation of previous years is not perfect. That said, most of our race ethnicity categories are around the same percentage as last year. Next slide, please. And so we'd like to close today with an exciting reminder that we're building something lasting together in partnership with families, providers, educators, and you all. We get the tremendous responsibility and opportunity to create lasting change in Multnomah County through early childhood education, to make a proactive upstream investment that changed the future for young children. One of the places this came alive for me recently was visiting Every Step Preschool in Northeast Portland. This is a preschool center opened by Dee Hayward, who has previous experience as a family child care provider and an early childhood leader at ERCO and the Center of African Immigrant and Refugee Organization. Every Step Preschool is a former child care center that was shut down during the pandemic, like many others in our community. The reinvention and dramatic renovation of the space helps me imagine what is possible. that all 3 and 4-year-olds across Multnomah County will have educators that believe in them, beautiful spaces to learn in, and a strong start for their future. So thank you for your time today. Next slide. And now we're happy to answer questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the presentation. And again, thanks for coming back here. Open it up to the board for questions. Commissioner Jones-Dixon, I saw you just put food in your mouth, so I thought I'd go to you first. No, just kidding. Sorry about that.
I have a couple.
Okay, Commissioner Singleton.
On slide 14, why did you choose to plus up those specific programs? Is it based on parent or provider feedback or audit recommendations?
These are all of our program offers.
So all got plussed up?
Yes.
Okay. And in the decision-making, was any of this done in any particular, did anything influence how you made these decisions?
Well, I think overall, most of our decisions are based on what we're getting. I mean, these are all of our program offers as far as like, I'm sorry what you mean by the changes in them.
So
all
the
of them.
dollar amount, so one got 29,000 as opposed to some that got over 2 million.
Right. I think, I don't have all the.
So why just 29 for
Yeah.
work? Was that just, that's the need? I'm just trying to understand
Got it.
what source information led to this decision.
So we work closely with our funded partners to understand how our current service is going, what are the needs that are maybe not being met with that current funding level, what did they spend last year, to start as a starting point for those budget conversations to really understand as we're thinking forward to the next, I mean, it's almost time to start planning for FY27. So we'll be starting those conversations again with partners to understand what are their needs, what's working, where are their gaps. So that is a key source of information. We're also looking at our outcomes and the data that we're seeing back from the reporting that we have from those sites to understand how are these investments making a difference as we continue to grow to universal.
Okay, I think in a different presentation, we had some conversation about what maybe parents were seeing that they needed and how that's reflected. So it would just be helpful for me to understand the full connection of, and again, it doesn't have to be in this moment, but just, I want to make sure that parents see reflected and hear what they've told you. And if that may be true, I don't know because I'm not in the weeds with y'all.
Yeah. So thank you for that clarification. Like, for example, if we needed to add more inclusion supports or those
Yes.
supports. So I'm thank you for teasing that out for me a little bit more. But each one of them are very unique. We get feedback that, there's a lot of need for this area, that more support for staff, more training for providers to support those children. And so we listen to that and of course add to those allocations. And I think, some of the things up there are just because we have more preschool seats, so it's an automatic change. And so each one of them are very different, but some of them are based on feedback. We hear mostly from providers at this time. I think that we get a lot of feedback about how much they want to do this work well and what would support them to do that. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And then I just want to ask if you could resend us the slide that we had on some of your revenue and expenditures. We had done one that included the impact if, oh my gosh, see, I told you my brain was going to be done by now.
Index.
Thank you, indexing. I just want to make sure that because I do think we need to have more conversation there, and I know there's an impact and it changes how goals are met, and I don't think we need to have that as part of your budget discussion today, but for me, it's helpful to just be considering that as we move forward in the implementation of this program and collecting this tax. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for preschool and early learning?
Well, go ahead, because I'm due to, I didn't get the presentation.
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, so thanks. So I just wanted to, I appreciate all this. And so you guys have, for all of the updated goals that we've had for seats, you guys have actually been able to outperform what the goals are in terms of seat creation, which I think is great for both our need for quality preschool and good on you and our provider community for being open to this and embracing this program. I would say, what has that impact been on the longer term budget? Like if we look, I'm just looking in like the slide for 37 where we talk about the dedicated savings and the fund balance, and has that like dramatically changed the shape of that?
It has, because each increase, so if we increase fiscal year 2026 seats, then our assumptions around projections for fiscal year 27 through 30 also then increase, 31, sorry. So it does dramatically change the budget. And seats, as you all may remember from the additional information we sent about the operating expenses, seats are that biggest portion of our operating expenses, and over time they become bigger and bigger. So when we finally get to universal preschool seats and the cost of running preschool seats, it becomes 82% of the operating budget. So that's really the driver when it comes to the projections.
And then I would imagine that there's like a very proportional growth for infant toddler per like seat growth. Is it like, do you know what I mean? Or does it depend on, I mean, I know we have different types of sites. So can you talk about that a little bit?
I think we would highlight infant toddler as the most difficult place to predict in terms of long-term projections, because that depends on the type of site that's joining Preschool for All and then how big their infant and toddler program is. And so sometimes you'll see, a site may start out with a smaller number of Preschool for All seats and then grow within that same site, but we're still supporting those infants and toddlers over time, if that makes sense. So there's that investment happens up front, and then their Preschool for All seats may grow as well. So I would say that
The proportion actually changes.
correct.
Okay, gotcha.
But that is, I think, the place where in the projections it's most difficult to finalize what those look like.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
And I wanted to add too, just looking at what people are proposing when they're getting new sites, I don't see a lot of addition for new infant toddlers. So it's like existing centers that have that already. So as far as changing that or growing over time, I don't think that will happen as much. And we're also making sure that we don't lose what we have. But I don't see a lot of people saying, I'm going to open a brand new infant toddler program.
Is that
Which
in
is
other
sad,
ways, but not necessarily for the program. Okay, thank you.
Any questions or comments? Just overall, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for the presentation. And I guess my observation, so I totally understand and appreciate the value and support early childhood education, full stop. Spent 12 years of my life in a volunteer capacity on the largest Head Start in the state. So I know how important it is to getting kids ready for kindergarten and being successful later on. And having sat here now for several weeks where we're cutting things that are essential county services is more just the juxtaposition that we're adding $65 million when, I mean, what did we cut in the rest of the Human Services Department? How much?
I think too much for me to remember, to be honest with you. I'm still in shock, but I know we cut about more than 6 million plus whatever in the amendments, but originally we started with 9 million.
We're 10xing adding it in and adding 65 million this year to this budget net, right? So this may be outside of the budget process, this budget process, but I do think we need to have a conversation about when we have specialty taxes and the disproportionate impacts on those functions or parts of the county that are core responsibilities of the counties that are reliant just on general fund, that are cutting services, essential services. Because I think the message it sends is everybody just needs their own specialty tax, and then you're immune to cuts. And I don't think it's a good way to govern. And the way that the city of Portland has really done that. And so then the few things left in the general fund take disproportionate hits So I think it deserves, because it makes me uncomfortable to like, we're increasing this by 65 million and we have a very large contingency there and we're cutting things that we know are going to have negative impacts on other services. I also want to flag that we're going to get a recommendation from the technical committee, but we have one of the highest marginal tax rates in the country here in Multnomah County. So very high taxes, but not high levels of services. And as our county economists have pointed out, it's in a very limited geographic area. And it'd be one thing if we were completely surrounded by other high tax jurisdictions, but we're not. And people can move. So I'm concerned about just the long-term viability of the program. And so this is more like, I'm also concerned about not only the viability of this program, but if higher earners leave the county, it also has other impacts on a whole host of other things and revenue for other services.
Yeah, just like from a department's perspective, I like to comment that we're really not allowed as employees to advocate for or against any tax structure. Our job is to implement. And so I just want to just
I'm
for
trying
the
not to look
record.
at you like this.
Yeah, I get you, but I think it's important for us to distinguish that for us, we are good implementers. And as I see, the program has done a great job in implementing it. We did not drive the tax structure or anything like that. If something should change, my job, I'm happy to do that. I consider myself as an implementer of, if you give me any policy and I'm happy to implement it. And several years ago, I was told, hey, you get this thing to do. And I hired the first person to do the job and the second person, and I'm happy to implement. But in terms of a tax structure, I think that's really not fair for us and for our staff, because it puts a lot of undue heavy burden on us that is not ours,
It's not, but this is also the time that I get to raise it, so I'm trying not to look at you. And
I mean, I got you.
And you sat here in the last weekend, presented some really challenging cuts, and
And I wish I can move the money, but you know that I can't.
right. I mean,
That's illegal.
yeah. Well, I think we need to tackle it because I think we have a long-term structural imbalance in, and again, it's none of yours to solve, nor at your instigation, but I think this is more of a commission discussion. I'm also concerned that we have a lot of people paying the tax who are also actually, we're double taxing a lot of parents, because if they're part of the cohort of, they don't, they're not yet part of the people who can access it, because we have limited access. So the 60-something% of the people who can't access it, yet they will pay. So they could be paying the preschool for all tax and then also be paying for preschool, which just seems also inherently unfair. It'd be one thing if they were paying it and they had access to it, but because of the limited access, again, I think these are commission level conversations we need to have going forward. But it just makes me uncomfortable looking at 65 million and like all the things we've heard that we're having to cut or like try and find money to restore that we know are really important. I would be interested as a follow-up in the infant and toddler, because I don't quite see how that wouldn't be continue to grow. So I'd love to see kind of how you're modeling that out as a, just because that looks like, I'm also wondering if you could, and I'm just looking at the geographic distribution again, there's a huge, there's some pretty large places, even though it's only 3 zip codes that don't have any, there's some large places that have very little. And that's concerning. Again, where in some cases, parents who are paying for that and also paying the tax are not getting any sort of value out of that. I am curious about why there's, and this is a small item in the overall increase, but why is this is more of a question for you. Why is there a FTE going into the chair's office?
Yeah, it's to manage the work of the TAG, the technical advisory group that's forming.
But wouldn't that be like just contractual service, or, I mean, a one-time, like limited duration versus a regular FTE?
So it's to manage the work of the TAG and any other kind of policy work. I think what we have found is there's been a lot of policy work that has been put on the preschool and early learning division that's actually more of the like policy, political questions that happen around the program. And it's taking a lot of time for my office to manage. So in addition to the TAG work, it's to help take some of the load off where it's more appropriate in, frankly, in more of the political offices.
Okay, but it seems like the expertise should be that if like they needed a FTE, it seems like it should be in the division versus in the chair's office, because the chair's office, that seems like that would, and I don't have any way to make this like not seem personal, but it's like that seems like it's going into your role as a legislator versus as the chief executive. I mean, I view the whole early learning division as reporting to the chief executive. And so I'm not, and we've raised this before, of why there would be more policy staff in the chair's office versus, say, for example, putting it in the new Office of Commission Services or something. So, or in the department. And if it's to support the TAG, I don't see why it's like ongoing FTE. Again, sitting there for hours trying to find FTE to cover, to restore essential services. I think we need to have the same scrutiny on that position as we're having on every other position as we're making cuts.
Sure. And I mean, I feel like this is one of those areas where we do have the ability to have a dedicated funding source that can help offset general fund dollars for work that is specifically dedicated to this program and to Preschool for All. And, there's a difference between the chair's office and the commissioner's office in terms of the fact that I'm the elected chief executive, and there's going to be executive and administrative functions that happen in my office that don't happen in commissioner's office, and handling the group of the overseeing the work of the TAG and having the conversations that are happening kind of community-wide with other jurisdictions and et cetera around Preschool for All. This program and others are just a part of the work that my office does. And we're happy to talk more about that, but and I will say, as somebody who was a commissioner for 6 years and had staff that did the work of the commissioners, what the work looks like for the chair's office is vastly different than it is for the commissioner's office.
I definitely.
I'm just going to disagree.
I just wanted to say I would love to talk about it more, because I mostly think it should be in the division. That policy work is work that divisions do and departments do. So I look forward to the conversation.
And also, you said this like because it's political, and like frankly, this shouldn't be political. And if the technical advisory committee becomes political, I mean, that's not at all what was. I don't believe what was promised to voters, that it would be a technical committee looking at the tax versus something political on it.
No, I mean more of like I don't think any of our departments should have to get into political like conversations or have to weigh in, because their job is to implement this program to the best of their ability based on the resources and the direction that this board gives and that the voters have done, right? So that's what I mean by political, like trying to provide that distance from them and any of our departments, frankly, for that type of work. The TAG itself is not political. I think and when I say political, I don't mean like political in terms of like an election or a campaign or something. That I mean political in terms of like working with another jurisdiction or working with other elected offices or working with, those kinds of things.
I mean, that just then kind of, that comment mystifies me because all the division, like the work, the one that then would be described as political, anything they're doing with the commission. And I think like, I don't view it as political, I view it as legislative. And so like anything that's like, we're the policymaking body, so why would a policy position just be in one of the commission offices?
It's not in any commission office. It's in the,
Well,
it's in the
you're-
chief
you're-
executive's office.
The chair's office is that in your role as a commissioner, your role as a chief executive is with all the departments.
But I also have staff as a chief executive, like the governor's office has staff. The mayor's office has staff, like chief executive offices have staff. That's part of it. And so I'm just going to say, are there any more questions for preschool and early learning? Because you guys have to go for another meeting and this is not a conversation that really applies to you.
Just, can I ask just a question on the information we requested? When we might get the follow-up, just so that we have time for the.
For the things that you requested today?
My last just question is, and maybe this is easier to do it in a conversation, a follow-up conversation versus in writing. I'm still trying to understand this, like the long-term saturation rate. And again, it may be easier if you just explain it to me in person because I'm still not getting the long-term thread on saturation.
We'd love to do that.
We can reach to your staff and schedule a time.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Thank you all so very much. Appreciate that. We'll let you guys get on to your next meeting. Yes. Do we have any amendments for this afternoon?
Since we won't meet tomorrow, I will just tell you, and I will still try to get my amendments done by Friday as we had planned. So one amendment I'm looking to move forward tomorrow will be on the public defense writ large and some of the case management and rent assistance functions. While I appreciate the amendment from Commissioner Moyer and Jones Dixon, I have some different offsetting costs that are more tangible for me that make me feel a little more solid about them getting funded. So I will share that out tomorrow. And then additionally, I am working with DCJ to find an opportunity to offset the cuts that I did to the SART program in my amendment with another program that may help fund at least partially refund some of the SART work. So that will come forward. Everything will be shared with you all via email as well. And then I'm working with the health department just to get a sense of the cost to bring back the PrEP Navigator. So those are the three amendments that I'm looking at. But again, just telling you now so that they're not a surprise, and I wanted to say them out loud.
Thank you. And what was your first one, though? The first one, the amendment that you're finding a different funding source?
Yeah, so it is for, I don't want to say it's just writ large, the public defense, some of the eviction prevention, the case management work.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I just missed that.
A couple things, but one of the things I had curiosity about, and I don't know if somebody has the answers or DCJ can send me the answer, but some of the case manager work that has been talked about that's valuable seems like things, especially like post-conviction, would be things that DCJ, that maybe, like I'm wondering why DCJ doesn't do some of those things versus, I mean, it just seems strange to have it connected to the public defender's office versus if somebody's being supervised under supervision. And then, so I'm just curious about that. Is that something I would ask Denise? I don't know, or somebody else?
I think, Christian, can we have that as a question to ask DC?
Okay, so that's just, I just was left wondering, is like, okay, is that a thing that we should be doing versus having it off, associated with a non-county entity? And then I'm going to have a budget note around the animal services enrichment, and it'll be, there's some potential fee increases that I might be looking at, but the timeframe is too compressed to bring something forward now. So I want to give a little time, also be able to leverage the expertise of staff on those fees. And so it'll be a budget note, not a budget amendment. And then I'll have a budget amendment related to, and I don't know if I'm doing this with you or not, so jump in if this is the case. This last week with Department of Human Services, one of the things that we saw that there was a 100,000 meal reduction for culturally specific meals in the Department of Human Services, and I'll be looking at an amendment to add those back. It's not a big dollar amount.
Okay, great. Thank you.
With you?
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, it's okay. It's okay, sorry.
Any amendments? No. Okay, great. Okay, so we're not meeting tomorrow, but we'll look forward to receiving those, and then we can go through any of those in our first budget work section next week. So great work this week, everybody. That concludes today's budget work session. That concludes our work sessions for this week. We will see everyone next week. There being no further business, we are adjourned.